Lights, camera, action. Episode 1 of the Paranormal Talent Agency. Written and produced by Heather Silvio. Book copyright 2018. Audiobook copyright 2024. Chapter 1. Las Vegas? I asked the question slowly. This could be an amazing career move, but I loved New York City. I rubbed my hands over the soft leather of the office couch on which I perched at the edge. I was delaying my response. Las Vegas? It was hard to imagine that people actually lived there. Catherine, don't overthink it. What does your gut say? Do you want to establish the West Coast arm of the Peterson Talent Agency in Las Vegas? Sidney Peterson asked again, green eyes watching me analyze the opportunity in my head. He knew, despite his directive to the contrary, I was absolutely a think-before-I-speak kind of woman. I stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sidney's office. The spectacular view of the city never failed to mesmerize. My mind whirled with possibilities, and my stomach tightened with anxiety. Or maybe exhilaration. If Sidney was right, and he believed he was, this would be an incredible opportunity to get in on the ground floor. With the proposed increase in tax incentives provided by the state of Nevada, many in the entertainment world believed that significantly more production companies would start filming in the state, and that the existing talent agencies might not quite be ready to handle the influx of larger projects. If PTA opened a branch now, well, we'd be able to sign the most promising acting prospects. And I could live in Sin City, where it was a heck of a lot warmer than in the Big Apple. Why me? I finally asked. You have more senior agents. Although admittedly, I was repping our biggest client, Gracie Corsini, recently married and newest star of one of the remaining soap operas shooting in NYC, Heart's Home. I do, he agreed, running a hand through his buzz-cut brown hair. However, you're extremely creative. You've demonstrated considerable management skills of the organizational challenges of this business and the sometimes difficult personalities. And you've done so while always remaining calm. I imagine we'll need a lot of all of that in Vegas. I thought for a few more moments while watching Sidney's body language. He projected the air of calm expectation that I'd say yes. His steepled fingers on his desk and the tightness in his jaw betrayed his doubt. He believed I could do it. I guess he wasn't sure if I believed I could do it. He should have more faith in his instincts. I'll do it, I declared, and Sidney smiled. My realtor, John, has a hold on some office space. I'll want you to check it out and okay it. Sure, no problem. Anything else I need to know? I'd like to have you up and running by the end of the month. Can you do that? Gulp and a breath. Absolutely. And John sent me an article. The biggest entertainment story right now is the death of a young 20-something actress of a heart attack. Oh my gosh, that's terrible, though we clearly need to give them a bigger story to care about. Sidney laughed. Yes, we do. And we will by the end of the month, I said with a smile. You know what caught my eye about the story? No? How much she looked like you, with her blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay, that's creepy, Sidney. Besides, I am not a young 20-something. You could pass for it, though. Moving on. Sidney laughed again. I trust you, Catherine, and I know you'll make us proud. Only 30 years old, and I was about to head up the West Coast branch of one of the top New York City talent agencies. Nice. Chapter 2. A 2-room office was all I felt necessary at this point. Waiting area and my personal office. Thus, Sidney's realtor John pleasantly surprised me with the tentatively chosen space. Our new office would be in a smaller 4-storefront strip mall next door to a larger 2-story artist center. We'd be right in the middle of the action, but by having our own space, we could still have the quiet that came from separation. Once I had signed the rental documentation, I made quick work of interior decoration. A successful trip to R.C. Willey, and they had agreed to deliver my furniture and artwork within 3 days. I stood in the waiting room, eyeing the 2 tan love seats with bright yellow throw pillows. Local artwork on the beige walls gave the space personality. A small desk for my assistant, note to self, hire assistant, sat near the door to my office. My actual office was the perfect size for me and minimal furniture. Filing cabinet disguised as a tall hutch tucked in one corner. Burnished wood desk stood in front of a decent-sized window. Comfortable black faux leather chairs for me and one guest. A soft bell drew my attention. I thought I had locked the front door. Hello? I turned at the unexpected greeting and exited my office. We weren't exactly open yet. I still needed to post some social media ads requesting actor submissions. Are you Catherine Rodham? A woman so average she was instantly forgettable took several hesitant steps into the waiting area. Yes, I responded, plastering a smile on my face. How may I help you? I've forgotten my manners. She answered my question with an apology and extended her hand. My name is Robin Landon. Her handshake was like gripping a dead fish, cool and slippery. Of Landon Talent. Ah, the competition. I peered closer at her mousy brown hair and half-smile as I released her hand. What can I do for you, Miss Landon? Please, call me Robin, she insisted. I wanted to welcome you to Las Vegas. That's not true. Thank you, I said anyway. I opened my mouth to say more, then changed my mind. You're wondering how I knew you were here already if you weren't open or advertising yet? Her eyes twinkled at the question, but there was steel underneath. I am curious, I admitted. My staff keeps an eye on the business licenses granted to comparable businesses. I nodded and she continued. How'd you manage to get yours so fast? I shrugged. I didn't submit it, so I couldn't tell you. I smiled broadly. I'm looking forward to meeting folks in our industry and beyond, now that we're here and about to be up and running. Wonderful, she said, with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. I'm also here on another matter. Oh? Councilwoman Barbara Nolman would like to personally invite you to join the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce. My eyebrows rose in surprise. I'm not familiar with the councilwoman, since I'm new in town. I appreciate the invitation. Please tell her I said thank you. You'll join then? We have a meeting in 2 weeks. I frowned. I'll consider it. I'd had every intention of joining, but this was feeling like a command requirement, not a simple invitation. I wasn't going to be pushed around just because I was a newbie. Please do. The councilwoman would consider it an insult to ignore her invitation. I nearly laughed. That had to be a joke. The talent agent sounded like a bad gangster movie. She believed what she said, though. I kept my composure and nodded. I'll take that under advisement. See that you do. Robin nodded, face tight. Thank you for your time. She turned to leave before I could respond. Thank you, I told my closing front door. That was weird. For most of my adult life, I've had the ability to know if people told the truth or not. Call me a human lie detector. I've always chalked it up to extreme empathy, though an internet search suggested I might actually be an empath. Today, it told me there was more to Robin and the councilwoman than was presented. I made mental notes to remember both Robin Landon of Landon Talent and councilwoman Barbara Nolman. Chapter 3. I loved my new condo. Prices in Las Vegas were so much more affordable than in New York City. I knew that, of course. I didn't live under a rock. But it's different when you're actually comparing what you can get for your money. After considering the various neighborhoods, I decided I wanted to be in an up-and-coming neighborhood, so I chose Newport Lofts, a condo building near the Arts District, walking distance to art galleries and restaurants. And when the weather cooperated, which was most of the time, I could even walk to work. My obsession with a local entertainment morning show started my first full day in the city only 2 weeks ago. I settled back on my maroon couch and clicked on the television. My teenage tabby cat jumped into my lap, purring and kneading my belly. Hey, Mama, I said, and scratched her behind the ears. You ready to be entertained and informed? She meowed in response and settled down in my lap. Good morning in the valley. Welcome to Entertainment Daily. I'm one of your hosts, Elizabeth Addison. The perky brunette showed chiclet teeth when she smiled, and I guessed her age as late 20s or early 30s. Her smile fell, and her tone hushed. According to police, a second actress has been found dead in her home of apparent unknown causes. I set my cup on the coffee table and leaned forward. This was not good. An image of a cute blonde appeared over the newscaster's shoulder. She gestured to the picture. Hadn't Sydney said the first dead actress was a blonde too? Kelly Stevens was a 25-year-old local actress. Her talent agent reports she was currently filming a television pilot and had no known medical issues that would have contributed to her death. Police say they found no evidence of self-harm or foul play at the scene, nor did they find drug paraphernalia. Toxicology reports have been ordered, however they won't be in for a few weeks. Unofficially, the cause of death is being considered medical, possibly a heart attack. Viewers of this show know that this is the second apparently healthy actress in 2 months to die of a heart attack without any history of medical issues. Police declined to confirm the 2 deaths are related. Despite my newness to Miss Addison's reporting, even I could tell she did not believe that. A smirk and a twinkle in her eye appeared as she leaned toward the camera. But guys, stop with the crazy conspiracy theories on social media. She shook her head. Magic? Witchcraft, voodoo, y'all are reaching. She winked and then turned to another camera, signaling the end of the story. The show continued, but I muted Miss Addison's co-host. 2 deaths in 2 months of local actresses, and right when I was launching the new office. Not the best timing. However, thus far, the odd deaths hadn't seemed to impact the interest generated by my social media posts for new clients. February was an unpleasant weather month everywhere, even Vegas. I learned this shortly after my arrival and was not happy. I sighed as I pulled out of the underground parking lot of the condo building in my bright blue VW Bug. At least my NYC winter wardrobe wasn't going to waste. My commute to the office I rented was mere minutes. I parked the VW in a spot in the tenant's lot behind the strip mall and, ducking my head, moved quickly from my car around to the front of the building. You wouldn't think 40s would feel so cold when you're used to 20s and blizzards. It did. I leaned against my door, took a deep breath, and crossed the waiting area to my office. I stashed my coat on a hanger in the closet, tucked into one corner of the room, smoothed my hands down the navy shift I'd chosen for my first day auditioning clients, and sat behind the desk. Not 5 minutes later, my assistant Cherie arrived, and we organized for the day. Hours later, I stood to stretch out my sore neck and did some trunk twists to get the blood flowing. There are a lot of actors in Las Vegas. Cherie laughed with the uncertainty of the young and newly hired, unsure of the appropriate response to my comment. I smiled inwardly. It's great to have this much talent to choose from, I clarified, and she nodded. How many more do we have today? Cherie checked her notes, curly brown hair bouncing as she slightly bobbed her head. 2 more men, Alexander Moore and Michael Onyx. I did another little stretch and tried not to yawn. While I was thrilled my social media notices pulled in so many actors interested in representation, after a while all the faces started to run together. Show me what Mr. Moore emailed us. Cherie pressed a few places on the screen before passing me the iPad. Oh wow. Alexander Moore was certainly photogenic, with his black hair just long enough to be sexy, electric green eyes, silky smooth skin, and jealousy-inducing high cheekbones and long eyelashes. I must have made a noise. I know, right? He's yummy. I laughed, and Cherie blushed. No, you're absolutely right. Let's hope he has some talent to go along with that, I added. Then changed screens to look at his submitted resume. Lots of local credits, mostly independent and student films. Could go either way, talent-wise. A soft bell informed us that the door to Peterson Talent Agency had been opened. Please go admit Mr. Moore. With pleasure. Cherie left my office, and I heard her speaking to someone. The other voice sounded definitely male and definitely sexy. Cherie reappeared in my office, eyes wide, and she gave a slight tilt to her head before stepping back out of the room to remain in the waiting area during the audition. I had an idea what she meant by the head tilt, but still felt unprepared when Alexander Moore entered my office. I stood and walked around my desk to greet him. Mr. Moore, I'm Catherine Rodham, talent agent for Peterson Talent Agency. Please call me Alex, Miss Rodham. It's a pleasure to meet you. He gripped my offered hand. An immediate tingle rushed through my body at his touch, and I found myself looking up into his amazing eyes. And that didn't happen much, given that I'm 5'10". I vaguely recalled seeing on his resume that he was 6'3". I blushed like a schoolgirl and pulled my hand free. What the hell? Why was I having this reaction? I've met plenty of handsome men before. Sheesh. I broke eye contact and returned to my desk, but not before I swore I saw Mr. Moore smirk. I guess he's used to this reaction. I sat at my desk and gestured for him to take a seat opposite, which he did. Thank you for your interest in our agency, I began, reciting my introductory speech by rote memorization while I continued to check him out, from the black t-shirt form-fitting to his muscular chest, obvious even under the outer blazer, to his jeans which were also, form-fitting. I managed not to fan myself. Chapter 4. What do you have for me today? I asked, blushing again when Alex gave me a knowing look. What monologue or scene do you have prepared? I amended my question, and he smiled. Alex retrieved 2 sheets of paper from his backpack and handed them to me. This is a scene from that new legal drama on Netflix, he explained. I quickly scanned the pages. Fairly innocuous, some opportunity for him to show fiery lawyer passion. Looks good. You can start whenever you're ready. It became obvious working the scene that Alex's acting skills matched his looks. I found it hard to maintain eye contact. Every glance seemed to spark. Ugh, I sounded like a romance novel. Still, there it was. Miss Rodham, he began. Please, call me Catherine. Catherine, he restarted, and my hands began to sweat. I fiddled with a piece of paper on my desk. I've resisted signing with an agent thus far because in Vegas it hasn't really seemed necessary. Oh good, business to focus on. I completely understand. Since you're here, I presume that means you're more open to signing now? Yes, absolutely. Tell me why I should sign with you. What do you have to offer? My body? Wait, what? Thank goodness I didn't say that out loud. Instead, I coughed lightly and answered, At Peterson Talent Agency, we consider ourselves more of a boutique agency, representing only a limited number of actors in a given market. Was I imagining the sexual desire I saw in his eyes? And was it that obvious in my own? I glanced down to break the tension before continuing. By limiting our actors, we're able to focus on the careers of the very best in that given market. I glanced back up. Based on your experience and what you've demonstrated this afternoon, I believe you could be one of those actors. We take a hands-on, personal involvement with all of our actors. Hands-on? That would be nice. My body temperature shot up with his comment, but I kept my voice calm. I know the Vegas market tends toward non-exclusive representation. Given our boutique approach, we require exclusivity. I'm all for exclusivity, he said, speaking the truth, albeit a layered truth. I didn't pursue that curiosity. I'm fairly certain my eyes darkened with desire. Great, I responded enthusiastically. I brought it down a couple of notches and slid a form across the table. Alex reached for the paper, and his hand rested lightly on mine. Another tingle raced through my body. He squeezed my hand slightly before taking the form to read through. I stared at him, again wondering at my bizarre overreaction. I look forward to working closely with you, he said, with another knowing look, handing the form back. I consciously avoided touching him again. We look forward to working with you too. I stood, and Alex followed. I remained acutely aware of his eyes on me. I opened the office door, then reached my hand out automatically to shake goodbye. Thank you for an interesting meeting, Alex said as he took my hand. I was so taken with my physical response to his touch that I did not initially register his unusual choice of parting words. You're most welcome, I responded automatically. We stood for a few seconds that way, our hands entwined, eyes locked, until a slight cough from the waiting room broke the spell. Catherine? Cherie asked, clearly not wanting to interrupt whatever was going on. I released Alex's hand, reluctantly, I'll admit. Yes? Our final audition of the day just called to cancel. Said something came up. Thanks, Cherie. Please show Alex out. With a final heat-filled glance, Alex turned and followed Cherie to the door. I'll confess that I watched his amazing derriere the entire time. What was that about? I've never ever had a reaction like that to any man, let alone an actor we've signed. Maybe I've been single too long. I wondered too about the undercurrents of Alex's statements that my ability caught. Typical actor misdirection, or something more. I called up the information for the canceled audition. Good-looking blonde 20-something actor, toothpaste commercial smile. His resume contained decent credits. I shook my head in regret and typed the letters DNH at the top of his information sheet. Do not hire. Canceling within minutes of your audition time without a real explanation? Never going to be represented by PTA. If I was honest, Michael Onyx canceling his audition didn't bother me. It gave me more time to prep for the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I had decided not to let Robin Landon's odd demeanor or the councilwoman's oddly worded request determine my choice. It made good business sense to go. I checked my watch. The meeting started in an hour, plenty of time to head home to feed Mama and catch her up on my day. Chapter 5. The chamber held their meeting in a business center near my condo, which was handy. It was too cold for me to walk. At least it was a short drive. I approached the double doors to the cavernous room. Soaring ceilings, white linen-draped high-top tables, and tinkling music greeted me. Over 100 people milled around, like at happy hour. Somehow, I'd expected something more businesslike, dry and boring, frankly. Do you need to check in? I turned to the young woman in a fitted pinstripe suit, seated at a folding table off to the side. Yes, I guess I do. I gave her my name. She checked in the appropriate spots, and then I was sticking a name tag below my right shoulder. I offered a thank you before entering the room. Muted conversation abounded. Since everyone I saw carried a cocktail, I scanned the room for a bar. Ah, there it was, on the far wall. I made my way along the perimeter of the room, pleased to see a wide variety of people socializing. I loved the diversity in NYC and would have been disappointed to lose that here. Once I reached the bar, I kept it simple with a glass of white wine and then headed into the crowd. 30 minutes of exchanging introductions and elevator pitches of our businesses later, and I drifted toward an unoccupied high-top table to rest. I was pleased that my anxiety had thus far not surfaced. Catherine. A woman approached me, a partial smile on her face. It took me a moment to place her. Hi, Robin. How are you? Wonderful. So glad you could make it. The councilwoman will be pleased. She was telling the truth. That's great. I uttered the words, unsure what else to say. I'll let her know you're here. Okay, I responded to her back. She had already turned and quickly melted into the crowd. Simply bizarre. A few more people paused at my table to introduce themselves, and then I saw Robin about 20 feet away. Beside her walked a tall brunette, age anywhere from 40 to 60, in a burgundy dress with matching nails. Even from here they looked like talons. A chill passed through me at the sight of her. I gave a tiny shake of my head. I let Robin's obsequiousness invade my brain clearly. I hadn't even met the probable councilwoman, and already my subconscious was telling me to be careful. Miss Rodham, I'm Councilwoman Barbara Nolman. Her smile revealed a row of small, sharp teeth. There was an aggressiveness in her stance. Showing me who's boss? I accepted her offered handshake and tried to clear my mind of these unhelpful thoughts. I kept my smile while she ground my bones together in her vice-like grip. When the shake lasted longer than was customary, I pulled my hand free. Was that a look of triumph? Good evening, Councilwoman, I replied evenly. I'm so glad you were able to make it tonight. She was telling the truth, but it was incomplete. I took it at face value. It's important to me to be tied to the community, especially the business community. Of course, that's what we're here for, she agreed. Now that was a lie. Why? An awkward moment passed. I felt increasingly uncomfortable the longer I was in her presence, and I did not wish to prolong it. The councilwoman's smile broadened. At my discomfort? And she leaned in. What made you decide to come to Vegas? I gave her my standard response to the question while I considered her appearance at this closer angle. Her eyes were dark, nearly black. She had poreless skin, which contributed to my attributing a wide possible age range. Up close, I guessed her in her 50s. Maybe had some good work done? Hopefully you and Petersons will stay in the valley for a long time, the councilwoman concluded our conversation. A long time, the talent agent beside her echoed. They both lied, yet there was a sliver of confusing truth. I hope so, I responded blandly while my mind raced. The three of us smiled for a half-second, and then the women left, walking in lockstep toward another table. Stepford assistant, I thought with a laugh about the talent agent. The whole interaction was weird, and I knew something else was going on, but I could identify no objective reason why, only my instinct about their truthfulness. Or not. I took a deep breath, made another round of the room, and then called it a night. I was shocked when a glance at my watch informed me that it was already after 9. Tension slipped away with every block closer I got to the condo. A meow greeted me when I opened the door. I scooped up my kitty and we bumped heads. "Hey, Mama." I scratched her behind the ear and set her down. "What an odd night." She circled my legs, rubbing against the bare skin above my shoes. "I'm getting your food. Don't worry." I spooned some fancy feast into her dish and set it on the floor. She licked my hand to say thank you and chowed down. I laughed. "Let me tell you about the meeting." I had already told her about the auditions from earlier, so I regaled her with stories about the men and women I met tonight, especially Robin and Barbara. Mama finished her food and followed me as I moved through the condo to the bedroom. She jumped on the bed and watched me while I wrapped up the stories. I hung the blue shift back in the closet and walked to the bathroom to brush my teeth and wash my face. I mumbled my words, trying to talk around the toothbrush in my mouth. Mama meowed at me. Okay, I uttered after spitting out the toothpaste. "Sorry, I know you can't understand me like that." In bed, I pulled the earth tone comforter up to my chin, crooked my arm for Mama to curl up against me. "Interesting day," I told her and drifted to sleep. I walked from the doorway to my office desk, an uncomfortable feeling growing within me. Fear. Why? Nobody else was present. Lights shone brightly. I heard faint noises from my neighbors. And yet, fear. I placed a hand on my desk, steadying myself. Was it really fear? Maybe not. More like uneasiness or uncertainty. I sensed I was no longer alone. I spun around, my eyes met his green ones, and I took a sharp breath. "Alex, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Catherine." He ignored my question. He approached, his long legs making short work of the room. He stopped within arm's reach and made no move to touch me. He simply looked at me. Unsure what he wanted, and feeling a very different emotion building, I echoed his greeting. "Hello, Alex." He smiled his sexy smile and, incredibly, leaned in to smell me. He took a deep breath and then exhaled out, his breath warming the side of my face. I involuntarily closed my eyes to enjoy the warmth, and that broke the spell. The uncertainty returned, and my eyes snapped back open. I stepped away from him. Alex looked surprised. He turned up the wattage on his smile and moved toward me again. Our eyes locked. He reached his hand up, fingers lightly grazing my cheek. I tilted my head, wondering. Using both hands, he cradled my face, his eyes searching mine for something. He moved closer still, yet our bodies did not touch. His hand slid down my neck, continued lower to take my hands in his. "Until next time, Catherine," he whispered. "Next time," I agreed. Abruptly sitting up in bed, I knew I was alone, and not in my office, and had just had one heck of a sensual dream. "What the—" I began, before stopping. I could still feel the excitement in my body, my desire to have Alex touch me carrying over from the dream. Mama, who had moved to the foot of the bed, now padded toward me. "Meow!" I scratched her behind the ears, and we bumped foreheads. "I don't know, Mama." As the feeling subsided, and Mama curled back up and began to lightly snore, I chalked it up again to my extended singledom. I really needed to go on a date. Chapter 6. Sydney was absolutely right. I had reviewed another dozen production company requests for assistance with casting their projects here in Vegas. 3 weeks since we established the West Coast arm of the Peterson Talent Agency, and we had more to keep us busy than we ever imagined. Thankfully, I scrolled through the requests, a major sequel to an insanely popular franchise movie, 2 episodes of a cable network show, a Chinese movie, and an episodic, that was interesting, and several pilots for new shows. Cool. Mostly independents or foreign projects. Wait, this sounded intriguing. Major motion picture looking for a male actor for a month-long shoot. Supporting role. Character description, tall, attractive, and fit. Open to ethnicity and race. Oh, do I have the perfect guy for you. Picking up my phone. I know who has a landline in this day and age. I dialed Alex's number, which I had to look up. No, I did not know it by heart. Yet. Good grief. Catherine, is that you? I heard Alex's voice and realized that he had answered while I was talking to myself like a dang schoolgirl. Focusing on his voice, I was all business. Yes, Alex, it's Catherine. I was calling to see if you would be available for an audition tomorrow. It's for a supporting role on a major motion picture. I'm available. Can you text me the address and any specific character information I'd need for the audition? Are there any sides? For those new to the entertainment biz, sides were sections of dialogue sometimes provided by casting directors for actors to memorize in advance of auditions. It helped the casting folks get a better sense of acting ability, instead of assessing someone's ability to cold read or audition with dialogue they've never seen before. But I digressed. No sides, though they've said to expect that they'll likely do callbacks. Unless someone is perfect for the role, of course. I'll text you the information as soon as we hang up. That sounds great. Catherine? I had thought I'd escape the call with solely the professional talk. It appeared that was not meant to be. Yes, I responded, with only the slightest bit of trepidation. How have you been? Good, I stammered. That's good, he responded, and I reflexively laughed at the awkwardness. He laughed in response. God, that's awkward, he commented, as though reading my mind. Or it was truly that awkward. I'll let you know how the audition goes. Although I guess they'd tell you, he trailed off. I laughed again. Yes, they will if they like you. If you wanted to call to tell me how you thought it went, that would be okay too. Did I just tell an actor to call to tell me how an audition went? What was I smoking? Okay. His voice sounded huskier, or maybe that was wishful thinking. Okay, talk to you soon. I hung up before I could say or do anything else borderline unprofessional. Seriously, I'd been doing this a long time and met a lot of hot guys. I stared at the black retro-style phone for a moment, picking it up and setting it down several times. I moved it back to the corner of my desk, my mind wandering. What was up with my response to Alex? Catherine? I glanced at Cherie, hovering in the doorway to my office. Yes? My focus remained on arranging auditions for more roles. It had been a crazy busy day. Catherine? Mr. Moore is here, in the waiting room. Right now. The intensity more than the words caught my ear. I gave her my full, undivided attention. Who is here, Cherie? Mr. Moore. She tried to give the side-eye to indicate his presence behind her. Saving her from her facial gymnastics, I responded. Send him back, thank you. I was impressed with myself that my voice did not change inflection, though my heart was certainly racing. I made a mental note of where I was in my pile. Alex replaced Cherie in the doorway. He leaned against the frame, a slight smile on his lips. A green t-shirt stretched tight across his broad shoulders. Low-slung jeans fit exactly the way they should. No man needed to look this good. I sighed and sat up straighter. Alex, what can I do for you? I gave him my most professional smile, and he entered the room, closing the door behind him. He somehow managed to do that without breaking eye contact, and my insides noticed. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by to tell you how the audition went. He walked over to my desk, taking a seat in the chair opposite. Oh, I figured you would call, I responded lamely. Now what fun would that be? He smiled mischievously. No fun at all, I found myself flirting back. I'm glad you agree. How did it go? I asked him, to get us back on a professional track. It was great. They told me unless someone came in after me that blew them away, I'd be cast. And since I was toward the end of the audition time, I doubt anybody did. He smiled with that sexy yet aggravating self-confidence. Have they called you yet? He asked with an innocent look. You already know they called me, don't you? My blatantly calling him out surprised him, but he recovered so quickly, I wasn't sure I didn't imagine it. I do. How do you know they already called? I have my ways. A deflecting answer, though true. He shrugged, signaling this part of the conversation was over. Fine, let him have his little display of power. I smiled sweetly. Then, I guess our conversation is concluded. They'll call me with details for the first day of filming. Thanks for stopping by. Heart still racing, I pointedly looked down at the paperwork I had been shuffling when he arrived. Two can play this juvenile game. To my surprise, Alex chuckled softly. I guess so. Until next time, Catherine. I heard his chair move when he stood. I snuck a peek to watch him walk to the door, admiring the shape of his rear again. At the doorway, he stopped and turned, catching my lustful staring. His smile broadened. He said nothing about my faux pas. It was lovely as always to see you, Catherine. My face flushed with embarrassment. You too, Alex. Have a wonderful evening. We'll be in touch soon with the production details. I hope so. Chapter 7. And so, it was less than a week later that I found myself on set, watching the crew set up for the first scene of the Las Vegas shoot. Why do people like to shoot in Vegas? The Strip, of course, and this production was no different. We were outside the Bellagio to film sequences with the famous synchronized fountains as the backdrop. Lights were currently going up all around a coned-off section of the sidewalk. A couple of security guards stood at each end, directing curious tourists to go around. A middle-aged man with a slight paunch and a clipboard hurried past me. Excuse me? Yes? His eyes remained on the clipboard, though he had quit moving forward. I'm looking for Mia Finn, the producer. Now he looked up and squinted. She's expecting me, I amended. Catherine Rodham, talent agent with Peterson Talent. He seemed to vacillate for a moment, and then with an almost imperceptible shrug, gestured toward the fountain railing. She's over there, long green hair. You can't miss her. He hurried away, and I scanned the group closest to the railing. Sure enough, he was right. You couldn't miss Mia. Long green hair pulled into a high ponytail accented her amazing cheekbones. Based on those around her, she was average height or shorter and very thin, wearing a long-sleeve t-shirt and jeans. I strode over to join the knot of production staff. Excuse me, Mia Finn? The brightest green eyes I'd ever seen met mine with a questioning look. I'm Catherine Rodham. You'd said I could pop by. Give me 1 minute. Of course. I stood and watched her address a few more prep issues, and then she turned to face me full on. Welcome to the set. Thanks for letting me crash. Since my office is the baby in town, I want to meet more people in person, put faces to names. Always a good idea in this business, she agreed. I like to be on set for at least the first day of shooting, to see where the money has been going. She grinned. Let me introduce you around. We spent the next 10 minutes talking to various small groups of people. Mia, true to her word, must have introduced me to every person on the set. We approached a group of actors, and my breath caught. This did not go unnoticed by Mia. She glanced at me and then back at the group, nodding knowingly. You're Alexander Moore's agent, correct? I was glad it was nighttime. Maybe she wouldn't see my neck flush. Mia laughed, the sound like delicate wind chimes, and put a hand on my shoulder. He's a looker, that one. We had reached the group. In addition to Alex, there were 2 women and 1 other man. They were all good-looking actors, around my age I speculated, and dressed to the nines. Apart from Alex, one of the young women was adorable. Straight out of the 1920s, with a blonde bob, fair skin, dark red lipstick, and even wearing a flapper dress. I shook everyone's hands, noticing that while Alex's was warm, the flapper woman's was cool. Alex's eyes found mine, and everything retreated. We were the only 2 in the universe. I distantly heard Mia tell me to visit for however long I wanted, and the actors to be ready in 5. Then she and the group scattered. It's good to see you. Alex's voice washed over me. You too. You look wonderful. He truly did, in a dark brown pinstripe suit and white shirt, open at the collar. What are you doing on set? I didn't think agents usually came out. They normally don't. I'm trying to meet as many people as possible. Makes sense. A conversational lull left us standing alone in the crowd, me shifting my weight back and forth. Do I make you nervous? I stopped moving and gaped at him. Why would you ask that? I don't know. You seem nervous around me." I waved off the comment. I'm probably just cold and still trying to adjust to my surroundings. He lifted an eyebrow, but didn't comment on the absurdity of my explanation. I silently thanked him. A production assistant saved me by yelling instructions. "Break a leg filming," I offered for a goodbye. Alex gave me a mock salute and turned away. I watched the final preparation for the first scene of the night, again pondering my insane reaction to this man. "Lights, camera, action!" A smattering of laughter indicated everyone knew this wasn't usually said. Mia grinned at the director, and I smiled. The production was underway. I shook my head and called it a night. Chapter 8. Sitting on my balcony, sipping the most delicious of cafe mochas, I almost missed the newscaster's melodious voice telling Las Vegas that the next story would be about the latest salacious murder in Sin City. The words filtered through my brain. The coffee nearly came out my nose, and I lost interest in the mountain view I'd been enjoying. I tripped over the doorframe entering my condo, but made it to the couch in time to clearly hear Elizabeth Addison sadly inform viewers that a third actress had been found dead of unidentified causes. I clutched my coffee mug so hard I thought it would break. Viewers may remember that this makes the third unexplained death in as many months in the entertainment industry here in Las Vegas. I stopped listening. A series of photographs were shown of 3 beautiful young blonde women. I barely paid attention to them either. My eyes were glued to the words at the bottom of the screen. Big budget bombshell, major stars film, delayed by murder. I sent people to that set. Panic rose. They started filming last week. I didn't recognize the poor young woman who had died, thankfully, though who knew what this would do to the production timeline. Wow, that sounded harsh and indifferent, even in my head. I gave myself a physical and mental shake. "Time to focus," I announced to Mama. "If only I knew what I should do first." She unhelpfully meowed. The universe responded and my cell phone rang. "Catherine Rodham speaking," I answered when my caller ID did not show a number I recognized. "Catherine Rodham of Peterson Talent Agency?" "Yes." "This is Homicide Detective Jacob Dawson, investigating a death on the set of John Doe." "Homicide?" I squeaked out the question. The news said it was an unexplained death. "Yes, ma'am. At this time, the death is considered unexplained." I gripped the phone tighter. "How can I help you?" "We are trying to confirm who was authorized to be on the set in the past week, and we understand your agency sent several actors. Is that true?" "Yes, we sent 6. I can provide you their names and contact information when I go into the office later." "Call the number on your caller ID and ask for me directly. Thank you for your cooperation." "You're welcome." I disconnected the call, feeling weird about the formality connected with death. Mama meowed. "I'm going to talk to my 6 actors myself to find out if they know anything," I responded. She meowed again. "First, I wanted to check in with Mia." "Hey Mia, it's Catherine Rodham." "Hi Catherine, what can I do for you?" I heard the strain in her voice. "I understand the production has been halted for the moment." I left the why unspoken, since of course she knew. "Do you need a break? Maybe get a cup of coffee," I improvised. She let out a deep sigh. "That would be fabulous." Chapter 9. Makers and Finders Coffee was a locally owned coffee shop walking distance from the condo. I already knew they had an awesome Mexican spice latte that I adored. Mia arrived about 10 minutes after me, her green hair again in a ponytail, lines of tension around her eyes. She waved and joined me at the table. A waiter came by to take her order. Based on her quick response, she was also familiar with the coffee shop. Mia breathed in deeply, eyes closed, before focusing on me. Her amazing eyes sparkled, though the worry was obvious. "Thank you so much for the invitation. I needed this." "You're welcome. I can only imagine." "I love producing films, and I understand sometimes things happen, but sheesh. An apparent serial killer hit my set," she muttered. My eyes widened. She spoke the truth. The press is saying they're still just unexplained. Mia chewed on her lower lip. "You know that would be a mighty big coincidence." "True, and I spoke to a detective on the case." I spoke softer, glancing around. Nobody was paying us any mind. "How did that go?" Her curiosity was normal, but I sensed something under the surface. I watched her carefully as I answered, explaining it was a simple conversation and he would be interviewing my actors. She deflated somewhat with my not-too-exciting answer. I wondered what she was expecting. I turned the conversation. What about you? What about me? Deflection. Interesting. What do you think about the murders? You really think it's a serial killer? Mia regarded me for a moment before answering. Yes, I do. Do you have an idea who it is? I didn't believe she did, though she was clearly hiding something. No, I do not, she answered slowly, breaking eye contact. That was a complete lie. My heart sank at the thought she might be involved somehow. I doubted she was the killer, but she knew something. Have you spoken to the police yet? She shook her head. My people have. I haven't yet. I was barely on set after the first night, making sure everything started smoothly. I'm a producer, not a director, she added with a hesitant smile. I plan on speaking with my actors who were on set. I'll be sure to let the detective know if I learn anything. Playing junior detective? There was no malice in her voice, only tiredness. Something like that, I agreed with a chuckle. I'm sure everything will work out, I assured her, though I had no basis for my confidence. She undoubtedly knew that, but reached out to squeeze my hand. Thank you. The director was told we'd probably be clear to start by the end of this week. That's wonderful. Hopefully it's smooth sailing from here on out. Hopefully, I agreed. After a few more minutes of idle chit-chat, we ended the coffee. I left with a sense that something important was unsaid. Or something I missed, perhaps, but no idea what. Thank you for coming in. I ushered out actor number 5 robotically. So far, nobody saw or heard anything even remotely suspicious. I informed them they would be contacted by Detective Dawson, and if they told him what they told me, it'd probably be perfunctory. Despite the coffee with Mia earlier, I was tired. Only one actor left to see. I didn't need to look at my sheet. I knew who it was by the flush creeping up my neck. Alexander Moore is here, Cherie announced 5 minutes later. I had sufficiently calmed my hormones down in those few minutes so that I greeted Alex like an agent should. Alex, thank you for coming in on such short notice. I indicated he could sit in the chair across from the desk. You said that it was connected to a death? Did you see the news this morning? Alex shook his head. An actress who had been on the set of John Doe was found dead. I managed to say this with almost zero tremor in my voice. Or so I thought. Alex immediately rose from the chair and came around the desk. Startled, I rose to match. We stood close enough that I could smell his aftershave, which was quite nice. He put his hand gently on my shoulder. Are you okay? Did you know her? I was taken aback from his unexpected display, so different from the borderline cocky flirtation he normally demonstrated. I'm okay, I finally uttered. No, I didn't know her, I further assured him, surprised still by the genuine reflection of concern in his eyes. I placed my own hand over his hand on my shoulder and smiled warmly. Thank you for asking. We stood like this for a long moment. Were we basking in the warmth? I don't know, but I realized for that moment I wasn't thinking salacious thoughts about him. And then I was. I took a half step back and indicated he could retake his seat. He mirrored my smile before doing so. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Am I a suspect? He laughed to be sure I knew he was joking, and I chuckled in response. Should you be? Absolutely not. I waited for my intuition to tell me if he was being truthful. Yes, but incomplete. I frowned. His face became serious. What happened? The police don't know. They confirmed that the young woman died an unexplained death, I said, finger-quoting the key piece of information. I called some of my fellow talent agents and learned her name was Cindy Matthews. I watched his face for signs of recognition with the name. Did you know her? Speak to her on set? I don't recognize the name. I might have spoken to her without knowing it. What did she look like? She was Caucasian, early to mid-20s, long blonde hair and blue eyes. Alex shook his head. I don't think I even remember seeing her. Was she there at the same time I was? I have no idea, I admitted. Did you see or hear anything outside of the ordinary? No. I wish I could be more help. Do the police have any idea at all how she died? They told me no, but that doesn't mean they didn't hold something back. True. He frowned. Do you know when the movie is going to restart? I received word the delay will only be a few days since the death didn't occur on the set. I believe you'll go back by Friday. Alex smiled widely, and my heart gave a little flutter. That sounds great. I look forward to resuming. I stood suddenly, startling us both. I'll let you get back to your evening. Thank you again for coming in, Alex. I walked around the table to properly escort him out. Except Alex didn't make a move toward the door, and I nearly walked into him standing next to the chair. Excuse me? I asked in confusion. A look of uncertainty alighted on Alex's face, and he leaned in to hug me. I responded, holding tighter than I expected to, resting my head on his shoulder. I'm glad you're okay, and that, sad as it is anyway, you didn't know the woman, he whispered into my ear. Thank you, was all I could respond. I wasn't sure why I couldn't fully get a read on this guy, but he seemed sincere. We separated less awkwardly, two people supporting each other. I'll see you later, Catherine. I look forward to it, Alex. This time, I gave the saucy smile and flirtatious inflection. His grin widened, and then, like a flash, he was out of the office. Who'd have thought a sweet guy was underneath that posturing exterior? Chapter 10. I stared at my reflection, admiring the view. I'm not really that vain. I actually tried to clean up for this. After 3 blessedly murder-free weeks, production wrapped on John Doe. And, as is customary in the entertainment world, they were holding a wrap party. As in That's a Wrap, and we're celebrating the successful completion of shooting. I was invited by one of the actresses from the agency who had appeared in the film and by Mia. I hadn't been to a wrap party since New York City. I got dolled up. Taking advantage of my height, I chose a floor-length body-skimming red satin dress with a plunging neckline and backline. Normally, I don't show so much skin, but what the heck? It was a Vegas party. I decided to leave my blonde hair long and loose. I hoped I presented a great combination of fancy and casual. If I didn't, that was okay too. I liked it. My cell phone alerted me that my Lyft driver was 1 minute away from the building. I rode the elevator to the ground floor and walked out of the building at the exact moment the Honda Coupe indicated on the phone arrived. Perfect timing. The car pulled up to one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, one that would normally be a crazy financial extravagance. After waiting for a month to get a reservation, of course. I reminded myself that being even loosely connected to Hollywood had its privileges and walked into the lavishly decorated place. Gorgeous arrangements of flowers adorned every table, roses, lilies, and orchids, surrounded by delicate baby's breath. Rhythmic music, Latin-flavored, played lightly in the background. Intimate lighting cradled the people in the room. Oh, the beautiful people. They were out in spades. Everything from floor-length gowns like mine to barely there mini dresses, kitten heels to 6-inch stilettos, and tousled messy hair to savagely upswept do's. There was an open bar, and it seemed everyone had a drink in their hand. Not to be left out, I headed that way. I'll take a whiskey sour, I requested of the bartender, the stereotype of a good-looking young male service worker. He smiled broadly and made the drink. As he handed me the glass, I noticed his eyes shift to over my shoulder, so I was unsurprised when I sensed someone's presence behind me. Hello, Catherine. I didn't know you were coming to this shindig. I turned at the velvety sound. Hi, Alex. Jessica invited me. I somehow managed to keep my jaw from dropping. Alex had also apparently chosen to go all out for the party, dressed in an actual tuxedo. There were no words to describe how amazing he looked. I had resisted the urge to contact him while he finished filming, desperate to keep our relationship professional. Now I wanted to throw that right out the window. I must not have hidden my response, because Alex gave me a Cheshire cat grin. I took pleasure in watching his eyes darken with desire, his gaze traveling down my dress and back up to my face. You look stunning. Thank you, Alex. You look pretty good yourself. We smiled at each other for a moment of silence. At the second it seemed about to turn awkward, he found his voice. I'd do the chivalrous thing and offer to get you a drink, but you look like you're doing okay." Noticing his empty hands, I flipped the script. "Would you like me to get you a drink?" Alex laughed. "Sure, I'll take a gin and tonic." I turned my head to address the bartender, who nodded that he heard. Once Alex had his drink in hand, we walked together to an oversized television showing a slideshow of still photographs taken during filming. Alex identified people I didn't know and regaled me with a few stories from the set. As he wrapped one up, a hand touched my shoulder. "Miss Rodham?" "Yes?" I turned toward the voice. A petite brunette with luminous dark skin and eyes smiled hesitantly. "Jessica, how many times have I told you that you can call me Catherine?" "Yes, ma'am." I smiled inwardly. You could take the woman out of the South, but you couldn't take the South out of the woman. Thank you again for making me your +1. I had such a good time on set. It seemed only right to thank you for helping me get my first real role. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone wave at Alex. He gave a slight wave back. "Excuse me, ladies." And then he was gone. I only half listened while Jessica talked about being on set, my attention on Alex. He began having an animated conversation with an absolutely gorgeous woman in one of the microdresses and stilettos I had noted earlier. They seemed very friendly. I wondered at the jealous tinge to my thoughts and gave myself a mental shake. More and more people arrived, and much mingling took place. Occasionally, I saw Alex, but we didn't speak again that night. A few times I noticed he had an odd expression on his face, like he smelled something he was trying to identify. What that could be, I had no idea. As the evening wore on and more alcohol was imbibed, the party became louder and raucous. I'll admit I had 3 or 4 whiskey sours. I can really hold my alcohol. I was only a bit tipsy. I groaned when Robin Landon headed my way. She looked blandly nice. "Hello, Catherine. Are you enjoying the party?" "Of course. Are you?" Such scintillating conversation. I glanced around, looking for an out, before focusing on the woman in front of me. No reason to be rude. "I am, thank you." "Interesting." She lied about having fun. "Thank you for introducing me to the councilwoman the other week." "You're welcome. We missed you at last night's meeting." Another interesting answer, lie mingled with truth. "You and the councilwoman?" "Yes." "The two of you seem close," I said, curious about her reaction. Robin blushed. "Not really." Absolute bald-faced lie. "Really? That's not how it seemed at all. She seemed to rely on you." That wasn't true, but I had a hunch. Robin beamed. "You think?" "Definitely. I try to be there for whatever she needs." Truth. Not a romance, though, and from what I'd sensed of the councilwoman, a one-sided relationship, whether business or friendship. I'm sure she appreciates that. I doubted my words, but wanted to be kind. A male hand tapped me on the shoulder. "May I have this dance?" "Excuse me," I said to Robin, who merely shrugged and turned away. I danced with several men, and although it was fun, more than a couple of times I saw Alex dancing with the hottie in the short dress. And then I looked around and didn't see either of them. I walked the perimeter of the room, and I can't believe it, even checked the restroom, looking for the woman. Neither were to be found. The party was winding down anyway. It was 3 a.m. after all. Not only was I jealous that Alex might have gone home with the woman, I was angry that he didn't ask me to dance. Ugh, maybe the alcohol was having more of an impact than I thought. It was definitely time to leave. Chapter 11. I woke up the next not-quite morning in time for the midday news. After making myself a cafe mocha, I curled my legs under me to sit on the couch. Mama jumped up beside me. I turned on the television and was surprised to see Elizabeth Addison. I didn't realize she did the actual news in addition to her morning show. She had the perfect newscaster expression of sad and caring while she announced the latest breaking news. An actress was found dead this morning in her Summerlin apartment. This marks the 4th unexplained death of an actress in 4 months in the Valley. Karen Weston was last seen at a party following the conclusion of filming for John Doe, leading some to wonder if the production was cursed. A picture of the dead actress was displayed on the screen. I actually spit my coffee out, something I thought only happened in the movies. An outrageously attractive blonde-haired, blue-eyed 20-something smiled engagingly from what was clearly her professional headshot. I immediately recognized her, the woman Alex had spent much of the night with. Could he be a killer? Images of Alex and Karen whirled in my head. I tried to decide what to do. Should I call Alex to ask him about her? Should I call the police to tell them what I saw? In my heart, I didn't believe he was a killer. Technically, the police weren't calling any of these deaths homicide, I didn't think. Though how they were explaining 4 deaths in 4 months of young, attractive actresses, I had no idea. My phone ringing saved me from having to make a decision. Catherine Rodham speaking. Miss Rodham, this is Detective Jacob Dawson. We spoke before. As if I could forget. Yes, Detective. How may I help you? My stomach had already begun churning while I imagined where this was going. I understand you were at the party last night for John Doe? He asked this as a slight question, though it seemed obvious to me he already knew the answer. Yes, I was. Would you be available later this afternoon to answer some questions? Sure. Do I need to come downtown? I'll come to you. Awesome. Of course. Do you need my address? I have it, thank you. Ugh, I was slow sometimes. Okay. Well, what time? 3 p.m. See you then, I said, more cheerfully than the circumstances lent themselves. Thank you, ma'am. The call ended. I set my phone on the coffee table and shakily stood. Mama meowed from the couch. I scratched her behind the ears before I walked over to the sliding glass door that led to my balcony. I leaned my forehead against the glass. This did not bode well. The hours passed in a blur. I became increasingly anxious as 3 p.m. drew nearer. When there came a knock at my door, I about jumped out of my skin. My tabby freaked from my nervous response and ran for the bedroom. I'd probably find Mama under the bed later. I opened the door and appraised the gentleman standing before me. He defied my internal representation of him from when we spoke before. He was tall, with a lithe swimmer's build and close-cut blonde hair. I realized I was stalling when he spoke. Miss Rodham? I'm Detective Jacob Dawson. We spoke on the phone earlier. Yes, of course. I'm sorry, I stammered, before standing to the side to allow him room to pass. Please come in. Thank you, ma'am. He entered and walked toward the dining room I had arranged in the middle third of my studio condo. He looked at the table, though did not move to sit. Pardon my manners, please be seated. As we both sat, he smiled unexpectedly, blue eyes kind. You don't have to be nervous. You're not a suspect. I knew he was telling the truth. Still, the comment threw me for a second. Wait, a suspect? I never thought I was a suspect. His smile dimmed. Oh, usually people worry they're a suspect when a homicide detective comes by. I hesitated, uncertain, before finally blurting out. If someone at the party last night is dangerous, that's what worries me, that I might know him. Him? Aren't men statistically more likely to do harm? That's true. I could read his disbelief in my explanation. I smiled and tried to look helpful. How can I help, Detective? The questions began innocuously enough. General timeline-type questions to establish when I arrived, when I left, that sort of thing. Then we got to the meat of the matter. Did you know Karen Weston, the actress who died? I did not. I answered succinctly before asking, was she murdered? That's unclear at this time. Huh? There are 4 dead actresses, right? All young and healthy? All blonde and blue-eyed? You guys have nothing? I heard the hysterical note creeping into my voice. Miss Rodham, this is an ongoing investigation. He paused before continuing. The news reports actually have it right so far. All 4 women seem to have had a heart attack. Yes, he added as I started to interject. That's statistically unlikely, so we're looking at other explanations. Comprehensive drug testing came back on the first 2 victims and they were clean. The others have been requested. The detective looked vaguely surprised to have told me this much. I wanted to reassure him this happened all the time. I have one of those faces. People like to confide in me. Or maybe it was part of my poorly understood empath abilities. No evidence of poison, I said slowly. That seemed like the most logical explanation. Detective Dawson unexpectedly laughed. Do you watch a lot of crime television shows? I blushed slightly. A few. Keep in mind, some poisons clear the system faster than others, so it's possibly something like that. Which brings me back to my fear that someone at the party is a killer. His eyes narrowed. You said that before. Is there someone you have in mind? When I didn't immediately answer, he leaned forward in the chair. If you know anything, please share it. Help us catch whoever is doing this. I closed my eyes briefly. I had never seen Karen before last night, but I definitely noticed her. How come? She was dressed rather provocatively, designed to draw attention. And did it? It seemed to. Anybody in particular? I hesitated again. If Alex was innocent, this would be a minor inconvenience. If not, if my gut was wrong and he was a killer, this might save a life. One of the actors from my agency seemed to spend a lot of time with her, I finally stated. Alexander Moore? Yes, I answered, surprised. Thank you for confirming what we'd already been told by others at the party. Okay, isn't poison the choice of female killers? The detective smiled again. Yes, that's true. However, remember that we haven't confirmed poison, and we're just gathering information. That was not an entirely truthful statement. Alex must be a person of interest. My chest tightened. Did you see anybody else or anything that stood out as suspicious? Like when Alex sniffed the air repeatedly, I immediately recalled, but chose not to share. I didn't understand what it meant, if anything, and I had already made up my mind to track down Alex. For the detective, I simply shook my head. Well, since you've seen a few detective shows, you know the drill, Detective Dawson said with a playful smile. He reached into his pocket and removed a business card. If you think of anything else that might be helpful, please give me a call. My cell is on there. You don't have to call the station. Of course. He stood and I followed. At the door, he turned to me. Please be careful, ma'am, until this is solved. I will, thank you, I responded, rattled slightly. He smiled a final time and left. I needed to talk to Alex to find out what happened. I wondered if I needed to wait for the detective to talk to him first. Unable to decide at that moment, I chose to go to the office and answer emails until I could make a decision. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I didn't believe Alex was a killer. And a serial killer at that. 4 dead women in 4 months. It didn't seem possible. When I arrived at the office, the decision was made. Alex was sitting on the ground, slumped against the door, with his head in his hands. Chapter 12. Alex! I hurried to him. He looked up with such hope in his eyes when he saw me that I melted a little. He stood so that we met at the door. Catherine, I didn't do anything, I swear. As before, that rang true, but incomplete. I had never gotten such mixed impressions from someone before, and I didn't like it or understand it. Hang on a minute, let's go inside. I stopped him from speaking further and inserted my key into the lock. He stood there, the anxiety rolling off of him, igniting my own. We silently passed through the waiting area to my office. He collapsed in the chair, eyes wide, silently begging me to believe him. And I did. Mostly. What happened? I asked instead. Has a Detective Dawson spoken to you yet? If he hasn't, he certainly will soon, I'm sure. He spoke to me this morning at the station. I'm apparently a suspect. What should I do? I didn't respond immediately because I realized that the detective had already spoken to Alex before coming by my condo. Questioned and released. Sneaky. Catherine? I refocused on the distraught man before me. Tell me what he asked you. He asked me all about last night, including whether or not I had spent time with Karen, the actress who died. He added, not realizing I already knew. What did you tell him? The truth, of course. I danced and talked with her off and on throughout the night. What happened when you left with her? Now it was Alex's turn to stay silent. What makes you think I left with her? Did you tell the detective that? He managed to look both wounded and angry. No, I didn't. He didn't ask. Alex appeared relieved. He grinned suddenly. Did you really think I left with her? I shrugged and averted my gaze. Both of you vanished at the same time. Did we now? And how do you know that? He leaned back in the seat, hands interlocked behind his head. He smiled broadly, worries of a murder suspect forgotten, at least temporarily. I noticed you talking with her. Then you were both gone, I finished, rather lamely to my own ears. Were you tracking me? He seemed interested rather than irritated. Yes, I was, I astonished myself by admitting. I'm glad. You are? I thought you were interested in Karen. Karen? She was sweet and liked to dance. That was all. He paused before continuing. I wasn't sure you'd ever act on your attraction for me, because of our work relationship. My attraction? I asked the question, though we both knew the answer. Yes, the one that is definitely reciprocated by me. He replied flirtatiously, and I smiled back, feeling a flush of heat in response. Wait, let's stay focused. What happened to Karen? He paused a beat too long before answering. I don't know. I didn't leave with her, although I left after her. Again, that incomplete truth. How do you know that? I looked for her before I left and didn't see her. Why were you looking for her? Did you want to leave with her? This was the unspoken question. No, he answered my unasked question. He didn't elaborate, but I knew it was the truth. Then why? I was worried. About what? Another too long hesitation. I'm not sure. Something seemed off that night. That was more lie than truth. What was going on? Is that why you kept sniffing the air? Or at least that's what it looked like to me. He seemed almost impressed with my question. Yes, I was. There was a smell that seemed off. Wrong. That was almost a complete truth. Now we were getting somewhere. What? Like pot? You know that's legal here now. He chuckled with me, the smile not quite reaching his eyes this time. I can't really explain it. Mostly lie. Damn it. Can't or won't? A little of both. Will you tell me one day? Yes, not today. Not today, I repeated. That was the truth. I guess that's okay. You believe me that I'm innocent? That I didn't hurt Karen or the other women? Yes, I do. He didn't respond. Are you surprised? A little, if I'm honest. You don't really know me. That's true, I acknowledged. I wasn't ready to explain my human lie detecting ability to him. But I'm a good judge of character, and I don't believe you're a killer. Thank you, Catherine. You're welcome. He grinned. Will you go out with me? Yes. Just like that. Just like that. What about the professional relationship thing? We'll work that out as we go. That sounds wonderful. He walked around the desk and stood over me. I remained sitting. He put his hands on the arms of the chair and leaned in close. Are you sure? Why wouldn't I be? My breathing quickened at his nearness, even though we weren't touching. There are things, he swallowed audibly, about me that you might not like. He pushed back and turned away. So solemn, I teased, and when he turned, I was shocked to see real pain in his eyes. I stood next to him, our heat commingling. I know you have your secrets. Let's take it one day at a time, okay? Okay. He smiled shyly. Meet you tomorrow at 8? If Thai is good, I'll text you a place I like. I reached a hand up to touch his cheek. He took that hand in his own, held it in place. We'd work everything out moving forward. I trusted my instincts. They'd never let me down before. I pushed down the awful memory of the one time I ignored them. I'll see you tomorrow night. Chapter 13. The next morning, I clicked on the television to watch Entertainment Daily. I was already excited about my date that evening. Elizabeth Addison's smiling face filled the screen. Except she was silent. Oops, I forgot to unmute the television. I hit the button. A solemn expression replaced her smile. And then I gasped. Alex's headshot appeared in the corner, where the dead women's images had been before. My heartbeat throbbed throughout my body. I sank into the couch. He couldn't be hurt. It was much worse. Alexander Moore, a local actor, was questioned yesterday as a person of interest in the deaths of 4 actresses over the past 4 months. He was released and not charged. The police remained tight-lipped over why they questioned him. The screen switched to a video clip of the newscaster shoving her mic into Alex's face outside a restaurant. She asked him why he was questioned by police. He stared directly into the camera before speaking. His short answer was lost in the wind buffeting the mic, but his face was tight in obvious irritation. He held up a hand to indicate he was finished and turned away from her. She started to follow, then stopped. The video was replaced on screen by an unsmiling Elizabeth. Mr. Moore had no comment when we tried asking for his side of the story. We'll bring you more of this developing story later during the news broadcasts. I hit mute when the show went to commercial. His side of the story? I thought I already knew it. Did I? I debated whether or not to call Alex and finally settled on texting. Are you okay? Yes? Why? Did you see Entertainment Daily this morning? No, but that reporter questioned me last night. I know, I saw. How bad was it? She insinuated. Had no evidence. She wouldn't. I didn't do anything. You having second thoughts about our date? Nope. I'll see you tonight. Looking forward to it. Was I crazy to trust my instinct that Alex hadn't hurt those women? The question kept running through my mind while I dressed for our date. Of course, I lied when he asked if I was having second thoughts. I'd be crazy not to. I wondered if I was making a mistake, trusting my instincts. I focused on deciding what to wear. I chose a cute little purple cocktail dress with ballet flats. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard, but I wanted to look like I had tried. I sighed when the question returned yet again. Was I crazy to trust my instinct that Alex hadn't hurt those women? I didn't think so. Of course, every woman hoodwinked by a serial killer thought the same thing. Mama? I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to her claws as she ran across the concrete floor to the doorway of my bedroom. Meow? Am I crazy? I stopped myself. Mama crossed the room and hopped up on the bed, careful not to rub against me and get cat hair on my dress. Am I crazy to trust my instinct that Alex hadn't hurt those women? I gave voice to the question on repeat in my mind. Meow. I laughed. That was pretty forceful, Mama. Softer meow. Okay, I'll trust myself. Thanks, Mama. I scratched the back of her ears and she purred before flopping on her side, exposing her soft belly. I gave her a quick belly rub and a kiss on the forehead. Gotta go, Mama. Love you. She stretched and meowed. I laughed again before I moved to my front door. Was I crazy to trust my instinct that Alex hadn't hurt those women? The question returned again as I took the elevator down to the parking level under the lobby. Was I crazy to trust my instinct that Alex hadn't hurt those women? And the question again as I drove my car out of the parking garage and onto the street. Was I crazy to trust my instinct that Alex hadn't hurt those women? And one more time for good measure as I pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant. Then a variation. Why was I going out with him at all if I had doubt? Did I really have doubts, or did I watch too much true crime television? Honestly, I had no idea. I made the decision to trust him and explore our mutual attraction. I'd make sure I met him in public places the first few dates. Listen to me, already assuming additional dates. Alex stood waiting for me outside the restaurant. I exited the car, smiling at his chivalry. He must be waiting to hold the door open for me. Then I noticed he wasn't alone. He stood close to a smaller, thinner, younger man with blonde hair. The younger man looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. I squinted, trying to see him clearer or jumpstart my memory. It didn't work, though even from this distance, I could see both men were angry. Alex and the other man leaned in and exchanged words. I wished I could hear what they were saying. I looked down while I closed my door to make sure it completely shut. When I looked up, Alex had placed his right hand on the other man's left shoulder. I watched, unmoving. Alex leaned in further toward the man. Neither spoke. Confusion filled me. What was I seeing? As I continued to watch, hand on top of my car, the other man exhaled a white mist that Alex then inhaled. What the... I looked around to see if anyone else had witnessed what I had. We three were alone in this part of the parking lot. The transmission, if that's what it could be called, lasted mere seconds. Alex said something. The man nodded, turned, and left without another word or additional interaction with Alex. I stood on wobbly knees, mesmerized by what I had seen. Alex sensed someone watching him and glanced around. His gaze landed on me. His eyes widened, to match mine, in fact. Unnerved by what I'd seen and unwilling to listen to any more likely lies, how could he possibly explain this? I yanked open my car door and got in. Through the glass, I saw him running toward the car and heard him calling my name. I resolutely looked away and started the car. I glanced in the rearview mirror to make sure I wouldn't run him, or anyone else, over. I backed out and sped away. I met his eyes as I drove past him. He appeared devastated. I kept driving and didn't stop until I was safely back in the underground parking garage at my condo building. Chapter 14. A new question was stuck on repeat in my mind. How could I have been so wrong? Mama greeted me at the door and followed me into the kitchen. I gave her some canned food, still focused on that question stuck on repeat. How could I have been so wrong? Mama paused in eating to meow at me. I know, I can't help it. I have to trust myself. But what if I was wrong this time? Stop, I commanded myself silently. My phone rang, and when I glanced down, I was unsurprised to see it was Alex. He had called twice during my short drive from the restaurant to the condo. I let the call go to voicemail again. He did not leave a message. I headed for the bedroom, kicking off my shoes as I entered. I sat on the bed and tried to play devil's advocate in my head. I couldn't explain what I had seen, but that didn't mean Alex was a killer. And since I hadn't given him a chance to explain, was I maybe being unfair? He had, after all, acknowledged earlier that he wasn't telling me everything, and hadn't my instinct been to trust him? No. The other, colder side of my brain insisted what I saw had to be related to the unexplained deaths. Maybe whatever I saw breathe between the two men was some kind of toxin that caused heart attacks. Maybe that's what killed the 4 women? I glanced down when Alex called again, wondering if I should either answer it or turn it off, ultimately deciding to do neither. I watched it go to voicemail again. No message. What could the explanation be for what I had seen? From the safety of my condo, curiosity was getting the better of me. If I accepted my instinct that Alex was not a killer and something else was going on in the parking lot, then I really wanted to know what that was. I already doubted my theory that it was a toxin because the mist had moved from the other man to Alex. It would be hard to kill someone with a toxin in reverse. Plus, honestly, even with all the true crime I watched, I had never seen a toxin that worked like that. There had to be another explanation. A soft knock on my door. I almost missed it. Tentative? Peering through the peephole, my jaw dropped open. Alex? How did he get past security downstairs? Yes, Catherine. May I come in? The closed door muffled his voice. I stared in disbelief. My logical brain shrieked at me while I undid the lock and opened the door to allow him access. Mama took off from the kitchen, probably heading for underneath my bed. He walked in, tentative, like his knocks. He closed the door behind him, but stood right inside, uncertain. How did you know where I live? His gaze dropped. I tracked you. What, like with an app? Google? Something like that? Or did you follow me? No. That's it. No? I don't know what to say, he admitted. The full truth would be nice, I responded with a sigh. Why don't you tell me what you saw first? Don't think I'm missing your evasiveness. I stared hard at him, then relented. Fine. Thank you. He sounded so damn sincere. When I arrived, I saw you arguing with that other man. I prompted him with a pause. Michael Onyx. I cocked my head at the name. It seemed familiar, like the man himself, though I still couldn't place it. I sighed. Alex did not jump in with more information. Okay. I glanced away for a second, and when I looked back, this time I paused because fear flared at the memory. Alex closed his eyes, almost like he knew what was coming would physically hurt. I saw a white mist move from the man to you, then the argument stopped and he walked away like on autopilot. That's all. Alex gave a half smile. Not exactly all. That's when you ran away from me. Drove away to be exact, I responded with a half smile of my own. And then part of the answer hit me like a ton of bricks, as they say. I know why he looked familiar. You know Michael? I heard the concern in his voice. He was scheduled to audition the day I met you. Immediately after you, in fact, the last audition of the day. He canceled while we were wrapping up. I scrunched up my face, thinking. Alex had gone white. I know why he canceled. You do? He must have seen me go in and didn't want to risk crossing paths. Why not? Who is Michael Onyx? He's like me. Like you, how? Maybe it would help if we backed up a bit and I gave you more of an overview of the supernatural world in town? Supernatural world? I repeated. Oh yeah. What do you mean by supernatural? My brain tried to process what he was telling me. Beings who are not human or are different? His lips quirked at my question, but I didn't elaborate. Would I fall in that category? Like we see in the movies, on television, and read about in books? I asked instead. I focused on asking questions to quell my racing heart. This couldn't be real, could it? Las Vegas is practically a beacon for many supernatural beings, he started. Many? I interrupted. How many different types of beings are there? Alex shrugged. Not really sure. Besides your classic creatures, like vampires and werewolves, we have less well-known ones like, he hesitated, naiads. That's not what he wanted to say. Okay, vampires and werewolves I get. What is a naiad? Naiads are female spirits who preside over various forms of water. Sometimes they're called nixie. Seems like a desert would not be the ideal location for such a creature, I analyzed. Alex laughed at my comment. That's very logical of you, Catherine. Logic trumps anxiety, I retorted. His face crumpled before recovering. Think of all the fake bodies of water that have been created in Sin City, he reminded me. True. All of these creatures are drawn here, some in part because of the nightlife. You could see why a vampire might like it, right? I nodded. Others are drawn because of our anything-goes attitude. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Unfortunately, because people still fear the unknown, they are definitely not out in society. Despite my anxiety and disbelief, I found I was enjoying this possible education about my adopted city. That all makes perfect sense. How fascinating. To answer your question, though, I have no idea how many different types of beings are here. I don't know how many they number in total, either. They could be anywhere? A chill raced down my spine. Yes, but for the most part, they aren't dangerous. They want to live their lives in peace. For the most part. Obviously, like in purely human society, you have individuals who cause harm. It's the same in the supernatural world. Like Michael Onyx, that man you were arguing with? Exactly like Michael Onyx. Who is he, Alex? Alex didn't speak, and his face froze. A better question to start with is, what is he? What am I? Actors? I tried for facetious, didn't pull it off. Alex's mouth turned down. What are you? I whispered this, before adding haltingly, are you human or supernatural? I couldn't believe I was even asking that question. Eyes and face expressive and open, trying to convey trust, Alex reached a hand out toward me, then dropped it at his side. Resolute. Expecting a specific reaction, I guessed. Not entirely either, he finally said. I'm a half incubus. I laughed. Even though my instinct told me he was truthful, I couldn't help it. A half what? Half incubus, Alex repeated. What on earth is that? I've never heard of it. I was genuinely curious. Either Alex really was only half human, or he was seriously delusional. My internal lie detector told me he clearly believed what he was saying. Have you heard of a succubus? I recognized the name. I couldn't tell you what it is, I admitted. A succubus is a female. He paused, frowned. What? He closed his eyes. A female demon, he said through gritted teeth. You're a demon. I'll admit I may have slightly shrieked this. A succubus is a female demon that can seduce men. And? Please don't say what I think you're about to say. An incubus is essentially a male succubus. Damn it. You are a demon, I whispered, turning and fleeing further into my condo. Alex followed. Please, Catherine, hear me out. It's not what you think. I had reached my dining room table and sat in a chair. Supernatural beings. I leaned forward to put my head between my legs. Vampires, werewolves, naiads. I took deep breaths and willed myself not to pass out. An incubus, a demon. I felt a panic attack coming on, something that hadn't happened in a decade. Chapter 15. Alex pulled a chair close to me and sat. He was careful not to touch me, I noticed. Catherine, are you okay? I sat up so abruptly, our heads nearly collided. Am I okay? Am I okay? My voice rose a notch with each question. I stopped and regained control of myself. Continue. Yes, an incubus is a demon. I am a half-incubus. My mother was a human seduced by an incubus. Normally, children don't result from these unions, but... He shrugged. I'm here. Yes, you are. This time, Alex remained silent. You seduce women? I can actually seduce women or men. It's not necessarily a sexual thing. I smirked when a blush spread across his face. Wait, how does that work? Have you seduced me? Is that why I find you so attractive? I stared at him incredulously. He grinned wickedly at those questions. Not at all, Catherine. I swear to you that I have not seduced you, at least not in that way. Though I'd still like to explore. That was not fully true, and a knot formed in my stomach. Not yet, I stopped him, and he obliged. How does it work? The seduction, simply by proximity. Pheromones, I suppose. I nodded. That seemed reasonable, given the topic. To make irresistible suggestions to other people, I inhale a tiny amount of the other person's soul. That's the white mist I saw? Yes. Wait, you inhale part of their soul? Yes. I felt the blood draining from my face. He inhaled their souls. It is you, killing the women. Rumors of the deadliness of my abilities have been greatly exaggerated, he quipped. How can you joke about this? Immediately contrite, he explained. I rarely use my abilities, and when I do, it's only the smallest amount of soul necessary to achieve the desired results. You sound so clinical. Sorry. I waved off the apology. You said you rarely use your abilities. When do you? Mostly if I need to calm someone down. Like Michael Onyx outside the restaurant. Yes. You've never used them to harm anyone? If you're asking if I've ever killed anyone, I can't say that. I inhaled sharply, and he hurried to continue. I didn't always know how to use my abilities safely, but I have never taken deliberate advantage of anyone, and I didn't kill those 4 women. I noticed his careful word choice. I still found myself sympathizing. What he said was true, and how would I handle it if I learned I could suck souls and control people? I'd struggled with feeling like a freak when I found out I could tell if someone was being truthful. It seems that sucking out someone's soul would be bad even if you didn't kill them. Does it? I struggled for the right word. Grow back? Or regenerate? Alex chuckled. Yes, it replenishes. Think of it like the liver, he explained. You can lose some... Like from drinking alcohol? I was thinking more like from trauma, but probably, he answered with a smile. The development of new cells will continue. The soul is somewhat like that. I hesitated, considering the logic in the analogy. Okay, I finally said. Okay? I believe you. His jaw dropped. Really? All of it? Yep. You accepted that quicker than I thought you would. You're not the only one who's different, I said with a shrug. He started to respond, and I cut him off, my turn to deflect. When I was 18, I adopted a cat who was the reincarnation of my mother, I explained. As if on cue, a small meow came from under my bed. Of course you did, he responded without missing a beat. I'll tell you that story another time. For now, let's stick with you. I brought us back to the subject at hand. Are there many of you? Incubuses? Incubi? How would you say it? Even while I uttered the inane questions, part of me knew I was stalling. This wasn't lost on Alex. It's okay, Catherine. Despite adopting your mother as a cat. He paused with a slight shake of his head. I know this is a lot to take in. I nodded in agreement. Yeah, it kind of is. Michael is another incubus in town. I believe he's the one responsible for the deaths of those actresses. You were absolutely right, Catherine. If an incubus sucks out too much of someone's soul, they die. The death typically resembles a heart attack, like with the women. That's what Michael and I were arguing about when you saw us. I withdrew a bit of his soul to calm him down. You can use your ability on another incubus? Yes, we prefer not to. It's like a code of honor? He grinned. Something like that. Anyway, I was planning to ask additional questions, and then I saw you. He smiled warmly. Our eyes met, and I felt a flush of attraction. A beautiful distraction, but a distraction nonetheless. His smile fell. I was terrified of what you had seen and would think. Oh, Alex. I couldn't help myself. I reached out to take his hands in my own. We sat silently for a few moments, me trying to offer some degree of comfort, knowing I couldn't until the real murderer was caught. I knew I mustn't forget that the police still thought Alex was the killer. Alex broke contact, removing his hands and averting his gaze. I wasn't able to get the full information. Back to business. I can't tell if he has less control of his abilities or less desire to control them. I shuddered. He's either inept or a serial killer. I don't like those choices. Neither do I. What are we going to do? We? Yes, Alex, we. I'm in this with you all the way. He smiled so happily that, sappy as it sounded, I felt bathed in sunlight. You are absolutely amazing, Catherine. I blushed furiously, heat radiating through my neck and face. I tried to change the subject back to problem solving. What are we going to do? I'm not sure, he admitted. Any ideas? Not right now. Let's think about it. Maybe meet tomorrow morning at my office to discuss options? That sounds perfect. Our plan for the moment decided, we found that now we were sitting inches apart, staring at each other, attraction still chugging along, and completely uncertain what to do. I stood and he followed suit. Okay. I'll see you in the morning? Absolutely. I walked toward the door, Alex following. Although he glanced away, he wasn't fast enough for me to miss the look of disappointment on his face. Scheming starts tomorrow? Tomorrow for sure, Alex agreed. He smiled sexily and then sashayed toward the elevator. I laughed at the display, closed the door, and headed to the bathroom for a cold shower. Chapter 16. Sifting through snail mail and email in my office, waiting for Alex, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. There had to be something I could do to help. I identified two options: prove Alex's innocence to the detective or prove that someone else was guilty. I made a mental note to review timelines and Alex's alibis for the nights the 4 women died. Well, 3, since I mostly already knew where Alex was when number 4 died. What could Alex and I do to prove Michael was the murderer, if he really was? I'd need to talk more with Alex about why he believed Michael was the killer. Surely, it's more than he's also an incubus. We never really got to that last night. I flushed slightly thinking about being so close to Alex, longing to touch him, kiss him, sigh. I needed to focus. And then I saw it. A gift from the email gods. From Mia Finn, producer. Subject, calling all creatives. Don't miss the masquerade ball this Saturday beginning at 8 p.m. and lasting until the final person goes home. Whether you're in front of the camera or guiding from behind it, this masked ball is the place to see and be seen Saturday night in Las Vegas. At a location to be texted the afternoon of the ball to everyone who RSVPs. Don't miss what is sure to be the event of the season. Mia's name and description were all I needed to see. 1, it's a masked ball. Hello? How fabulous is that? And 2, more importantly, since the party would be a meet and greet for actors, writers, crew members, and producers in town, odds were good that Michael Onyx, possible murdering incubus and actor, would be there. A knock on the open door to my office shocked me out of my excited thoughts. Sorry to startle you, Alex began. Your front door was unlocked, and when you didn't respond to my knocking, I let myself in. I berated myself for not locking the front door. Someone more nefarious certainly could have taken advantage. Then I noticed Alex's arms laden with food and drink. He saw me notice and smiled. "I brought coffee and bagels." My hero. We grinned at each other for a moment before Alex made the move fully into the office. He set the bounty on my desk and pulled a chair closer before sitting directly across from me. "I hope you're hungry." "Absolutely." We began to unwrap our bagels. When I suddenly set mine down and gasped, Alex jumped to his feet. "What's wrong?" "I got distracted by the breakfast." He sat back down and watched me. "I have an idea." "Great, let's hear it." "I'm going to forward you an email invitation for a masquerade ball this Saturday." "That sounds like fun." "Yes, though that's not why I think we should go." "It's not." "Nope." I shook my head. "It's a meet and greet for cast crew, production staff." I paused expectantly. "I think I know where you're going with this." "Yep, Michael Onyx. Since he has allegedly killed 4 actresses, and he's an actor, he's in the industry. This might be the perfect way to flush him out." "Flush him out?" "Yes, although I never did hear why you think he's the killer." "Besides the fact that an incubus kills in exactly the way these women seem to be dying?" "Besides that, because if that's the criteria, you would also be a suspect." "Ouch, touché. Honestly, it's a mix of my gut instinct and some off-color remarks he's made about women." "Off-color?" Alex actually blushed. I'd rather not repeat them. "I'm a big girl," I reminded him, "but that's okay. I won't embarrass you." "Thanks. What's your plan?" "We use the ball so I can draw him out," I began, and Alex shook his head. "Hear me out," I hurried to add. "Fine, but I can already tell I'm not going to like a plan that involves using you as bait. That's it, right?" His eyes darkened with a mix of anger and fear. I faltered slightly. "Well, yes. I think it's a good one, though. And you'll be right there the whole time. I mean, we'll have to arrive separately," I amended. "But still. If something goes wrong?" "Either way, we have our proof." Chapter 17. Saturday night arrived, and my heart jackhammered in my chest as I got ready for the masquerade. Ugh, if this kept up, I'd die of a heart attack before Michael could try to kill me. I widened my eyes in the mirror and applied my eyeliner and mascara. No reason to be worried. It'll be in a public place. We'll get Michael to express interest. I'll draw him away somewhere private, and then I'll use my feminine wiles to elicit his confession. I stopped laughing before I poked myself in the eyeball with the mascara wand. The plan would work. I had no doubt. Although disappointed we wouldn't be going to the ball together, Alex had agreed with my logic that Michael would be unlikely to respond to me if I arrived with another male. Of course, to be convincing that it wasn't a setup, I'd have to flirt with several men, including Alex. I was definitely looking forward to that. I stood before the full-length mirror hanging on my closet door, surveying the damage, of the good kind. Halter neckline, bodice emphasizing my narrow waist, and material length longer in the back than in the front to showcase my legs. One of the benefits of being relatively tall. I couldn't remember the name of the material. It was soft and flowing, a mix of beautiful deep blues, greens, and purples. I felt like a goddess, which was funny, given that I intended to flirt with demons. My mask was a beaded and feather confection that perfectly matched the dress. I was ready. True to the email, I had received the address for the ball by text. I was mildly surprised it was a private address at one of the mansions in Queensridge, not a hotel or ballroom. Although some of those places were gigantic, I figured they could handle the numbers. The drive was uneventful. I gave my name to the security guard at the gate, and he handed me a printout of instructions on how to reach the home. Then, the barrier gate lifted to allow me access to where the other half lived. I drove along the tree-lined main road, watching for my first turn. Soon, I found myself in front of a massive 2-story white stucco mansion with actual underground parking. That's pretty legit, I had to admit, while I followed another car into the garage. As always, since I lived in a studio-sized condo, I wondered about paying for utilities and who exactly cleaned the monstrosity. Of course, presumably, if the owner wasn't in hock up to his or her eyeballs, the owner had the means to pay for such pedestrian concerns. I chuckled and exited my vehicle. Time to focus. Entering the home, it was clear it had likely been remodeled, yet still held vestiges of its earlier incarnation. There was marble everywhere. I mean, everywhere. From the floors themselves to the floor-to-ceiling columns placed strategically on the sides of the foyer. Huge picture windows ran the entire length of the back half of the house, allowing unobstructed views of the backyard resort-quality pool area. Hard to see what else the views were of since it was nighttime. Probably something equally stunning. I tried not to sound like a realtor in my head. I couldn't seem to help myself in noticing updated door hardware, lighting fixtures, and an absolutely marvelous modern kitchen, all gleaming metal and clean lines. Gotta love an open floor plan. I smiled when I saw Mia approaching. "Please tell me you don't live here all by your lonesome," I teased. The producer was a vision from one of her movies, her long green hair perfectly curled, glitter eye makeup peeking from behind an elaborate sea-green feathered mask, and an aquamarine sequined ball gown that showed off every perfect curve. She looked like a dang mermaid. "Goodness, no," she answered with her tinkling laugh. "It's a friend's place. He's in Europe on a project. He's letting me host the party here because he's awesome." It's amazing, but huge. Absolutely. Way too big for me. Me too. I decided to take a risk. "Do you know Michael Onyx?" Something unreadable flashed in her eyes before she answered. "Why?" Not really an answer. Interesting. He had submitted a headshot and resume when I first opened my office. He canceled last minute with no explanation and no request to reschedule. That seems odd for a professional actor. I shrugged my shoulder with feigned nonchalance. Her eyes pierced me. True. Neither of us spoke for a moment, and I couldn't understand what made the conversation awkward. What did Mia know about Michael? She sighed. "He's newer in town, and I would be willing to bet his listed credits are exaggerations or outright fabrications," she allowed. I knew Mia genuinely believed that, but there was more. "Good to know," I responded, thinking of how to word my next question. "Is there anything else about him that I should know?" Mia opened and closed her mouth once, before smiling broadly. "Nope, that's all that's relevant, I think." That was a blatant lie. I remembered her reactions during our coffee and hoped again that she wasn't involved in whatever Michael might be. "Okay, thanks for letting me know about the credits at least." "Anytime. Welcome and have fun." I watched her glide away and shook my head. There was something about her. I couldn't put my finger on it. I sensed him behind me before he spoke. He really needed to stop sneaking up on me. "Hello, Catherine." I turned and he took my breath away. "Hi, Alex," I managed to say. "You look gorgeous," he replied, his eyes beaming behind the black and gold mask. "You look pretty awesome in that tux." He held out his hand. "We should dance so we can continue to talk without raising suspicions." I accepted his hand, a tingle running through me while he led me to the dance floor. It was a classic waltz, which amazingly enough, we both knew how to do. Raising suspicions? Does that mean you've seen him? I chose not to use Michael's name, in case we were overheard by someone not friendly. Alex took the hint. "Yes, he's definitely here. I lost him once I saw you," he admitted, a hungry look in his eyes. My gaze faltered. The intensity of his feeling evoked a mirrored response in me. Alex pulled me closer. "Careful." He released slightly. "Why?" "Don't want to mislead him," I reminded Alex. He smiled ruefully. "Okay, if you insist." "I do." We enjoyed dancing in each other's arms for the remainder of the song and released with regret when the song finished. I danced with man after man, always keeping an eye out for our suspect, but only seeing him out of the corner of my eye or only at the start of a song when it would be awkward to break away from another dancer. Then I saw my opening. As one song ended, I spotted Michael getting a drink at the bar. His flat black mask was perched on top of his head. I excused myself from my dance partner and made my way over. "What are you drinking?" I winced at the come-on nature of my question. Michael turned and smiled. I understood how he was so successful with women. Whereas Alex was a hunk of smoldering man, Michael had that alluring blush of youth, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, strong jaw, and perfect white teeth. He filled out his black, long-sleeve shirt and dress pants nicely. No wonder he was finding success as an actor, too, the agent side of me commented. If he wasn't a killer who had stood me up for his audition, I would probably have signed him. Michael's perfect smile dropped completely. I know what you're trying to do, and it won't work. Chapter 18. My insides liquefied, and I found myself dumbstruck. He was onto us. Before I could say anything, his smile returned, if possible, even bigger than before. I already have an agent, so I won't be signing your exclusivity contract, he said with a wag of his finger and a laugh. I weakly echoed his laughter. You're on to me, I agreed with an even weaker smile. Michael didn't notice, or if he did, ascribed it to other causes. And I really must apologize. Apologize? For my last-minute cancellation of the audition. I forgot all about that, I lied. I'd like to apologize and explain anyway. I lifted my mask to the top of my head and sipped my drink non-committally. I'll be honest, I had thought I wanted to sign. Ultimately, I wasn't ready to go exclusive. Interestingly, that was mostly true. I guess he really wanted to be an actor. I wondered again if we had the right man, incubus. I'm still not, he continued. That doesn't mean we can't share a drink and a dance. I half-heartedly laughed again and turned to the bartender. I'll take a whiskey sour. The bartender nodded and began mixing the whiskey, lemon juice, and sugar. I refocused on Michael. I'm Catherine, or did you remember that? Nice to meet you, Catherine. I'm Michael. Of course, you already knew that. His shrewd look had me trying to decide if he really thought I still wanted to woo him to my agency or not. Seemed a little narcissistic, but hey, he was an actor. It wasn't unheard of. You'd been pointed out to me, I admitted, my attempt to both be honest and stroke his ego. His smile widened. I hope you only heard good things, he said with a wink. Uncertain how to interpret that, I did the girly thing and giggled. Wouldn't you like to know? I was proud of that response because it wasn't a lie and hopefully was mildly flirtatious. It seemed to work. Michael focused more on me. Would you like to dance? I thought you'd never ask. We replaced our masks over our faces to maintain the theme of the evening, and he extended his hand. We hit the dance floor, making idle chit-chat about the entertainment industry in Las Vegas. When the song ended, Michael bowed dramatically. Thank you, miss. That was lovely. And then with another wink, he walked away. Well, shoot, I didn't pique his interest. Flooded with disappointment, I made my way back to the bar. How on earth was I supposed to elicit his confession with my feminine wiles, if my feminine wiles weren't doing it for him? A light hand on my shoulder startled me, and I turned with fists clenched. Robin Landon laughed nasally and took a step back. Sorry, Catherine. I didn't mean to scare you, she assured me. Her yellow mask made her skin look sallow. I guess I was wrapped up in my thoughts. Her eyes widened. That must have been some deep thinking. What could be so captivating at a social event? Perhaps the good-looking young man you were just dancing with. I tilted my head, considering her comments. Coincidence? Oh, Michael? Do you know him? My question seemed to throw her, and she stared at me a moment too long. Sure, he's an actor in town. She shrugged. I represent him, as do other agents, no doubt. Her lips thinned in a forced smile. I believe you know you're the only boutique agency in town. Her lips puckered in distaste, like she'd sucked on a lemon. Interesting that the agencies were threatened by my approach. I silently chided myself for getting distracted by business. Robin told the truth about representing Michael. However, like so many others this evening, her comment was incomplete. I spread my arms wide. Our approach works in New York, and so far, it's been working here. How is your agency handling one of your top actors being investigated for murder? My jaw dropped at the question. I snapped it shut and shook my head. I'm sure I have no idea what you're talking about. Robin chuckled. Please, Catherine, everybody in town saw Elizabeth Addison's report that Alexander Moore is a suspect. That is inaccurate, I disagreed. He was a person of interest. Everyone knows that means suspect, she interrupted. Interviewed and released, I continued, as though she had not spoken. Not a suspect. Chapter 19. Are you ladies enjoying the party? A musical voice cut the tension. Yes, Mia, I answered, silently thanking her for the interruption. Of course, Robin answered perfunctorily. I'm so glad to hear that, Mia said, clapping her hands. Her voice washed over me, and I found the tension from the conversation melting away. Mia placed her hands on my and Robin's shoulders, gently squeezed, and then moved on to another small group of partiers. Robin opened her mouth to speak, but her eyes focused on something over my shoulder. Or somebody. I turned to look and was shocked to see Councilwoman Barbara Knowlman staring daggers in our direction. I presumed the daggers were for me. I smiled widely in her general direction, and Robin stepped away. I watched the councilwoman close the distance between us. She wasn't wearing a mask. She did at least dress up, though it was more mother of the bride than night out in Vegas. Miss Rodham, how lovely to see you. I didn't need my empath abilities to know that was a lie. I smiled anyway. Councilwoman, I'm surprised to see you at an industry event. I redirected the conversation. Why wouldn't I be? She countered. All business in the valley is the council's business. She definitely believed that, and undertones to the sentence suggested a meaning I was missing. That makes sense, I agreed with her. What can I do for you? Do? Why, nothing, of course. I'm simply stopping by to say hello. What an odd thing to lie about. What the heck? I'm going for it. That's a lie, I said in a lowered voice. Her cheeks flushed at my comment, and her lips smiled tight across her sharp teeth. Why would I lie? What other reason would I have for coming over here? Her questions were so reasonable, and still. That's what I'd like to know, I challenged her. I can't give you an answer I don't have, she said, still smiling, though the words were clipped. I couldn't get a read on her. Her comment was empty. She waited for my next salvo. I had nothing. This whole thing was weird, but I was getting nothing specific. My mistake, then. Apology accepted. The councilwoman reached out her hand, and I took it, for appearances if nothing else. A shock of cold flooded through me at her touch. She smirked at my reaction. Until next time, Miss Rodham. Definitely, councilwoman. I watched her walk away, head held high, greeting others when she passed them, a stereotypical politician. I knew that was a facade. Hiding what? Right now it didn't matter, I reminded myself. Focus. I frantically tried to think of a way to lure Michael. As the night wore on, it became apparent that the incubus wasn't going to take my bait. Dang, and I looked so good tonight. In frustration, I headed back to the bar. This evening was not going as planned. I'll take a vodka gimlet. The familiar-looking blonde standing at the bar next to me stared beneath her pink feathered mask. Not challenging, but questioning. I stared back before catching myself. Forgive me for staring, I apologized. Were you on the set of John Doe? The blonde smiled, her dark red lips parting slightly, and nodded yes, sending her 1920s ringlets bouncing. I was. Were you? Only the first day. I extended a hand, which she took, her cool fingers wrapping around mine. Catherine Rodham, talent agent with Peterson Talent. Evelyn Jones, actress. You can call me Evie. It's nice to meet you again, Evie. You too, Catherine. She stared at me, appraising. I saw you speaking with Robin and Barbara. Alarm bells began ringing. Yes, are you friends with them? Her nose wrinkled. Not exactly. I'm familiar with them. A delicate shoulder lifted in a shrug. I was represented by Robin in the past. Was? Turned out we weren't a good fit. What were you talking to them about? Evie shut down her side of the conversation fast. Not much, I evaded, before reconsidering. I was asking them about Michael Onyx. Why? Now it was my turn to shrug. Professional curiosity. She stared at me. I saw you dancing with him. You did? I did. Her eyes bored into me. What do you know? Chapter 20. No? About what? Confusion washed over me. I felt like there was a whole layer of conversation I was missing, just like with the councilwoman. Warmth filled me, and I knew Alex was near. "Hi, Evie." His voice came over my shoulder. I watched her eyes find him, and then a curtain fell. She gave me a lovely, if fake, smile and wished me well. She walked away from us, her short pink flapper dress swishing with her sashaying hips. I turned to Alex. "What was that about?" "What are you talking about?" "Don't sidestep my question. I saw her look at you and then decide to leave." She must sense the sexual tension between us. He smiled his wolfish smile, and all thoughts fled my brain. Dang it. He leaned in. Where did he go? Although distracted by his breath against my ear, I followed the conversation change. "I don't know. Do you think he left?" "It would appear so." I looked at Alex in despair. Now what? "Just because the plan went bust doesn't mean we can't enjoy the rest of the evening," he purred. "Now that sounds like an excellent plan B," I concurred. "Before we do, did you see the two women I was talking to before?" He shook his head. "Robin Landon, another talent agent, and Barbara Nolman, city councilwoman. Do you know either of them?" "Only by name. I don't think I've spoken to them." "You never auditioned for Robin?" "Nope. I got plenty of work through a couple of other agents. Before I signed with you, of course," he said, his eyes crinkling at the sides when he smiled. "Of course," I agreed, matching his smile. "Why?" "I'm not sure. There's something off with both of them. I can't put my finger on it." "Did you try smelling them?" I laughed aloud and then covered my mouth with my hands. "Careful. We don't want to draw attention." "Sorry about that." He clearly wasn't sorry. I shook my head and led him back to the spacious living room turned dance floor. Alex and I danced several more times, both of us surreptitiously keeping an eye out in case we were wrong about Michael having left. Neither one of us saw him again at the party. Dancing with Alex and learning about his life before Vegas, originally from Florida, wanted to be a beach bum before finding himself in Vegas, captivated me. Staring into each other's eyes, feeling his strong arms around my waist, and the heat of his breath as he whispered into my ears. The plan may have been a bust, but yeah, we definitely made the best of it. At the end of the night, we walked together to the underground parking. I saw the worry in his eyes. "Be careful." "I will." "Call me when you get home, so I know you're safe. I know you can take care of yourself, but still." "I will. I appreciate the concern." I smiled warmly at him, the concern he expressed demonstrating that our attraction was more than physical. The drive to the condo was blissfully uneventful. Once upstairs, I kicked off my heels and promptly removed my phone from my purse. Auto-dialed Alex. "You made it home?" More question than statement. "Yep, I had fun tonight." I hoped he heard my smile. "I'm glad. I did too," he responded, and I was certain I could hear a smile in his voice. A knock on my door startled me. I walked toward it, turning on the kitchen light as I passed. "I see you tracked me again," I told Alex flirtatiously, and then disconnected the call, though a part of my brain registered that he was saying something. Opening the door, I saw I was right. An incubus had followed me home, the wrong one. Chapter 21. My heart racing, I instinctively backed up. He stood in the bright light provided by the hallway fixtures. I remained in the dim light filtering from the kitchen and plastered a fake smile on my face. I hoped Michael wouldn't realize I was frightened out of my wits. Apparently, I'm a better actress than I would have guessed. Michael took my retreat as an invitation and stepped into my condo. I viewed my space through his eyes. He quickly appraised the small office space, the dining area with table and 4 chairs, the kitchen area along the wall opposite floor-to-ceiling windows, providing a view of the mountains. His gaze sighted my couch, and he headed straight for it. Mama hissed at the incubus from under the dining table when he walked past her. "Come on in," I belatedly invited him, following with no small amount of both confusion and fear. Michael stopped at the backside of the couch and placed his hands on top. He inhaled and turned with a smile. I stood opposite him with the dining table between us. Mama fled the room, heading toward the bed. I'd probably find her underneath when this was all over. I realized I still clutched my phone and wondered if I could be fast enough to call 911. I set it down to free up my hands. For what, I wasn't sure. I'd see where this went. "I hope you don't mind my showing up like this," he said with what I imagined he thought was a disarming smile. Time to disabuse him of that notion. "Actually, it's more than a little creepy. We shared one dance, you vanished, and then, poof, you're here, in my home," I added pointedly. His face hardened and anger sparked in his eyes. With concerted effort, his face smoothed out like the emotion had never been there. "I apologize. Perhaps I misunderstood at the party." Now, with a wounded puppy dog look, trying to ingratiate himself with me, I found myself watching him from an almost clinical perspective. He was so calculating. If I didn't know what I knew, I might fall for it. A truly scary thought. When I didn't respond, he continued, "I thought you were interested in me. I didn't want to make a production of it at the party since it was a business event." "How do you know where I live?" He paused before shrugging. "Google." I knew flat out that was a lie. Not just because I could sense it, but because I had hidden all of my online personal information. I decided not to further antagonize him. Really, I just wanted him out of my home. This was not part of the plan. Michael took several calculatingly uncertain steps toward me, still playing the part. The dining table remained between us, and he began to walk around it, talking the entire time. "You looked so beautiful tonight. I wanted to sweep you off your feet. Since I couldn't do that at the party, I decided the next best thing would be to surprise you at your home so we could continue the party privately." He stopped a foot from me and smiled. I saw the predator beneath the facade. Frozen, I did not back away when he reached out a hand to touch my face. With the skin-to-skin contact, I felt a rush of sudden heat, not unlike when Alex touched me. Now, confusion surged stronger than my fear. Was Michael exerting his incubus control to make me feel this way? If so, did that mean Alex lied to me about my reaction to him? Did he use his abilities on me, even though he swore he didn't? Or did this mean I found both men attractive? Michael leaned in for a kiss, and this time I did respond, by stepping back. I simultaneously noticed white mist leaving my mouth and an angry, surprised expression on Michael's face. Clearly, he had not expected this, though the mist did answer at least one of my questions. Michael was trying to suck out a part of my soul. I noticed I wasn't as angry as that thought seemed like it should make me. In fact, I felt funny. I smoked pot once, and it was kind of like this. Funny, yet pleasant. I smiled goofily at Michael. He smiled back, oozing self-confidence now, and moved closer to me again. He ran his fingers along my cheek and jawline, his eyes locked on mine. He stepped closer, our heat mingling. He leaned in once more for a kiss, and just before his lips touched mine, a loud banging sound erupted. I barely noticed, but Michael turned his head, breaking contact with me to look toward my door. Anger emanated from him. It didn't pierce the pleasant fog surrounding me. I heard words from the other side of the door that I did not understand. Michael obviously did. Confusion, anger, and worry flashed across his face. He released me and turned fully toward the door, hands fisted at his sides. I shook my head to clear the cobwebs. Enough self-awareness returned that I acted on impulse. "Michael!" Hearing his name, he turned back toward me. I grabbed him by the shoulders and kneed him in the groin. He cradled himself and fell to his knees in pain. The door to my condo broke open. I stared in shock at the splintered wood surrounding one beautiful, dangerously angry and scared incubus. Alex's look of worry vanished when he saw Michael curled on the floor in the fetal position, still holding himself. Alex smirked. "I guess I don't need to come to the rescue." Chapter 22. "Alex!" I threw myself into his arms. He held me close, and I felt our heartbeats, at first rapid from the excitement, then slowing as we calmed. His arms circling me provided a cocoon of safety. I closed my eyes and inhaled his clean, intoxicating scent. That reminded me. "Can I ask you something?" I mumbled this into his shoulder. "Of course. What is it?" When Michael touched me, I felt a similar reaction to when you touch me. Alex stiffened, and not in a good way, so I hurried to continue. Why is that, if you weren't using your incubus powers on me? They're not powers, just abilities, he corrected, though I heard the smile in his voice. He released me, keeping his hands on my shoulders and holding me at arm's length. Listen to me very closely, Catherine. Every incubus possesses the ability to simulate physical, bodily attraction. He appeared slightly uncomfortable, and what that means is that what an incubus can create would mimic what really happens when someone is truly attracted. His eyes searched mine to determine if I had understood. What you're saying is that Michael was able to create a fake version of what you naturally create. Now I blushed furiously. Alex smiled happily. Yes, that's exactly it. It was the same because between us it's real. It is? Part of me hated that I sounded so sappy. Another part of me was thrilled my feelings were reciprocated. An unwelcome voice from the floor interrupted. Oh, please, are you buying any of that? Alex and I watched in horror as Michael slowly rose to face us. The mask was gone, and for the first time, I could truly see the demon lurking below the human exterior. Michael laughed at Alex. Tell the woman the truth. You know you drew her in. He winked at me. He isn't that attractive. Didn't some of it feel wrong? And so help me, I felt a stab of doubt. Michael smiled smugly, and Alex rapidly shifted his gaze from Michael to me and back again, clearly wanting to address me directly, but without taking his eyes off the killer. Catherine, you don't believe him, do you? Is he lying? Yes. A sob caught in my throat. You're lying, I told him softly. When we first met, of course I could appreciate that you were attractive. However, I was drawn to you in a way that didn't feel natural. I couldn't understand it. Now I'm beginning to. That's not how it is, Alex responded. Our eyes met briefly, and my heart contracted at the pain I saw. I looked back at Michael. Michael continued to smirk at our exchange. I wanted to smack the expression right off his face, but he was controlled at the moment, and I needed this resolved with Alex now. Do you deny that you amplified my natural reaction to you at the audition? Alex paused for too long, and I had my answer. That's not the whole story, though, he insisted. A single tear tracked down my cheek. Why? I sensed more than saw his shrug. It was an audition. I wanted to make sure you agreed to represent me. It wasn't personal. I spun on him. It wasn't personal? You manipulated my response to you. For a job. Disgust filled me. Motion caught my eye, and I glared at Michael, who leaned back against the dining room table, lifting his hands in surrender. You stay put. It's not your turn yet. I looked back at Alex. Anything else? I knew there was more. Would he be honest? What do you mean? I closed my eyes for a moment. That's not an answer. When we first met, did you use your abilities in any other ways? I could not be more explicit than that, and his sharp intake of breath confirmed what I suspected. Please do me the courtesy of the entire truth. His shoulders slumped. I entered your dream, only once, he hurried to add. That's rich, Michael crowed, slapping his hand against his thigh. Look who's high and mighty now. I took a step toward Michael and pointed at him. Shut up! Regardless of anything Alex did or did not do, you are a serial killer. So shut up. My fingers shook, not with fear, with rage. Adrenaline from the night's events, including these nasty revelations, coursed through me. Michael gave a mock salute and continued to casually lean against the table. My eyes met Alex's, and I saw sorrow reflected there. Why? The word barely an audible whisper. It was an accident. I didn't consciously do it. That was true, but what else? Once I was in your dream, curiosity got the better of me, and I didn't immediately leave. You didn't respond the way I expected. I didn't just swoon over you. He flushed. You were clearly interested, but no, you didn't. He paused. What are you? That tripped me up. What am I? I don't understand the question. Your response to me, how you always know whether I'm telling the truth. I know you're different, but you seem human. I barked an unhappy laugh. I am human. Alex and Michael waited for me to continue. But I am different. I hesitated. I don't know what or how exactly. An empath seems to be the closest fit. I shrugged. Understanding dawned in the men's eyes. I can feel what others around me are feeling, and I can tell if they're being truthful or deceptive. Not all the time, though? No, Alex, not all the time. I'm like a living, breathing lie detector, though with the same flaws. If someone truly believes what they're saying, I'll read it as true, even if it's a lie. Also, sometimes psychopaths can mask whatever it is my brain reads and feed me what they want. And sometimes it's blank. I haven't figured out yet what that is. Maybe some people can block themselves entirely. I don't know. Michael Slow clapped. Alex and I stared at him. That's pretty good. I knew Alex was on to me. I didn't know you were going to be bait. Excellent job. Why did you do it? Michael took my conversational redirect in stride. He shrugged. My first one was an accident. He tilted his head in Alex's direction. Just like him accidentally entering your dream. Alex scowled. It was an accident, and I made sure it never happened again. My heart swelled at the truth in his statements. He never meant to enter my mind that first time, and he never did it again. That meant our feelings were real. My body flooded with warmth at the thought, and I grinned at Alex. I know. I turned back to Michael. I needed to know the whole story. And then? He shrugged again. It's such an interesting phenomenon. He waxed philosophical. There I was, this beautiful dead girl at my feet. And what can I say? I found that I liked it, so I kept doing it. I gaped at his nonchalance, and he laughed. Don't look like that, little empath. We're at the top of the food chain. When I accepted that, and truly accepted who I am and what I liked, well, it was easy after that. I moved from city to city. He frowned. Until now, you two screwed up my system. He stepped forward, hands fisted at his sides. Don't move, Michael, Alex commanded him. You know I can't let you leave here. Michael laughed. Are you going to call the police? No, I'm going to call... Alex glanced quickly at me. Someone better equipped to take care of you. No, you're not. Michael looked at me, imploring me. Are you really going to let him kill me? Kill him? I looked at Alex in confusion. We needed to call the police, and that was the opening Michael wanted. Without waiting for a response to his question, Michael attacked Alex, launching himself, hoping the element of surprise would be sufficient. It wasn't. Alex rebuffed the attack, then struck with an uppercut that rocked Michael backward. The incubus fell, his head cracking on the dining room table. Alex grabbed Michael by the neck in a grip so tight that I could see white knuckles on Alex and an increasingly red face on Michael. Alex leaned in and breathed deeply. Michael tried to shake his head, to break eye contact, to disrupt the flow. A white mist left Michael's mouth and entered Alex's. He's breathing in his soul. The panicky thought whirled in my mind. Michael's face paled. Alex had said he could call someone in the paranormal world to handle this, not kill the other incubus. Alex, no! I grabbed his head and turned him toward me. He released Michael, who fell to the floor, gasping. Alex stared at me, comprehension dawning. I almost... But you didn't. Thank you, he whispered and leaned toward me. Michael staggered to his feet, touched his fingers to the back of his head. They came away bloody. You tried to kill me. The outrage in his little boy's voice saddened me. Had he always been like this? Michael jerked forward, his eyes rolled into the back of his head, and he fell to the ground. Alex and I stared in shock at the unconscious demon on my concrete floor. What the heck? The incubus began vibrating. What's happening? I dropped to Michael's side. I think he's having a seizure, Alex answered, and dropped to Michael's other side. Do we need to get something for him to bite down on? I swung my head around, trying to identify what might work in my condo. I don't think it'll be necessary. I sat back on my heels, stunned. Michael's shuddering decreased until stopping completely. Is that normal? Alex's wide eyes met my own. I have no idea. Our stares returned to Michael. The murdering incubus was dead. I had a dead demon in my condo. Now what? Chapter 23. Such a shame he couldn't disintegrate like a vampire does when he dies, I quipped. Yes, I made jokes when I was nervous. And right then, my nerves were beyond frayed. I stared in both consternation and horror at the dead body of the incubus. That is what happens when vampires die, right? I turned to Alex for confirmation. He tried unsuccessfully to hide a smile. Yes, it is. Am I going to be your living, breathing Google for monsters? Probably. Wait, is that offensive? Not in the least, Catherine. I'm not a delicate flower. I laughed, pleased to note it was only slightly hysterical, and then sobered quickly. We'd better call the police. That seems the practical thing to do. Or do we need to call the other group you mentioned? That's not necessary now, he answered without explanation. I guess we'd deal with that later. I focused on the issue of the dead body. How are we going to explain this? Even though he's the killer, there's still only circumstantial evidence that he is, and our word, against the dead guy on the floor. Do you see where I'm going? Mama slunk out of the bedroom and approached the dead incubus. She sniffed at him, hissed, and took a swipe at his head. Satisfied the beast was dead, she meowed up at the two of us and then padded softly back into the bedroom. I assumed I'd find her later, either under the bedspread or under the bed itself. Alex and I faced each other. Don't worry about it, he assured me. I hesitated. I promise it'll be okay, Catherine. Okay, I trust you. I grabbed my phone off the dining room table and unlocked it to call 911. Alex put his hand on mine. Do you? Do I what? Do you trust me? Yes. With the threat of Michael gone, I found my concern about Alex returning. I'm angry that you lied to me. My instincts tell me what you said earlier tonight was the truth, that you amplified a little at the audition and then accidentally entered my dream that night. And you haven't done either since. I know that, but... He smiled. Trust your instincts. My return smile was a ghost of his. I don't know whether to believe my feelings. You can. I promised that after that first day. I know. And I did. Completely. I smiled then. He frowned. Why are you frowning? Why didn't you tell me the truth about your abilities? I dug my foot into the floor, looked anywhere except at him, while I gathered my thoughts. It's something I'm still coming to grips with. Have you always been an empath? Tears flowed from my eyes at his simple question, and he reached for me before pulling back. I'm sorry. What did I say? I shook my head, waited for the tears to pause. I had to spit the words out. After my mother came back into our lives, my father and I shared her. Like shared custody? A small smile flitted on my lips. Something like that. I had recently graduated high school. The next few years were bliss. There had been such a hole in our lives after my mother died that getting her back, even in such a peculiar way, made us whole again. On the night of my 21st birthday, while out celebrating with friends, I started having these weird impressions when I talked with people. I chalked it up to mild inebriation. It didn't stop. If anything, it became stronger. Everything people said triggered a truth or deception response in my brain. I tried to ignore it, but it was tough. I thought I was going crazy. Then one day, while visiting my father, he had a coughing fit. I asked him if he was okay. When he said yes, it pinged as a lie. I dismissed it. 6 months later, he was dead. Lung cancer. I tensed when Alex wrapped his arms around me, and then I relaxed. He rested his chin on the top of my head. I'm so sorry, he murmured. Thank you. I never challenged him. Maybe if I had, he would still be alive. My voice cracked on the last word. Alex pulled back, used the pad of his thumb to wipe the tears from my cheek. Catherine, you are not responsible for your father's death. If he lied to you, he knew what was going on. What could you have done to make things different? Tears fell faster, and my voice dropped. I don't know what treatment he was getting, if any. Maybe he thought with my mother back, I'd be okay. He never recovered from her death, even when she returned. Oh, honey, this is not your fault. Do you think your father would want you living like this? I shook my head. No, he wouldn't. I inhaled deeply and let out a trembling breath. And that's why I've tried to pay attention to my gift, not dismiss it, but I did anyway. This last said harshly as I ripped myself from his arms and turned to look out the windows on the city below. I knew you were hiding something, and rather than push it, I ignored it. And you used me. Alex put his hands on my shoulders from behind. I stiffened and he released me, though didn't move away. I know. I closed my eyes, let the hurt wash over me. If I could go back and change it, I would. I don't know what compelled me to even try. I haven't gone into someone's dreams since the beginning, even accidentally. He stopped. I glanced over my shoulder at his head, hung in shame. The rest of my body turned and I faced him. Look at me. The expression of hope in his eyes floored me. Do you genuinely want a relationship with me? Yes. The truth of his simple answer filled me with such lightness. A smile burst onto my face and I threw my arms around him. He responded eagerly. We'll figure this out as we go, he promised me, and I knew he was telling the truth. And then I remembered the dead body. With a sigh, I disengaged and pointed at Michael. Oh yeah, Alex muttered. I forgot about him. I giggled and then bit my lower lip. Actually, I have another question. He watched me warily. Yes? Earlier, I could have sworn I saw the demon beneath his human mask. Was that my overactive imagination? Alex's eyes widened at my observation. You saw that? It was real? He shook his head ruefully. Yes, unfortunately. Humanoid demons are interesting. They have human form, but the demon's soul can sometimes become visible. I felt the blood rush from my head. Do you? Alex laughed loudly. Thank goodness, no. With a half-incubus, my demon essence is just that. Essence. It does not have a physical manifestation at all. At all, he repeated for emphasis. I sighed in relief. Okay, good. Wanted to make sure you weren't going to grow devil horns at some point. Alex caressed my cheek. No, I'm not. He glanced at Michael's inert body. Guess it's time to call 911. Chapter 24. 911. What's your emergency? The professional, dispassionate voice asked on the other end. I've been attacked in my home by a man, and I think he's dead, I said, unsure how I should disclose what happened. The dispatcher's voice sharpened. Ma'am, are you hurt? No. The dispatcher's voice faded to the background, though I continued to answer her by rote. Did the man have a weapon? Did I know the man? Was anybody else in the home? The police are on their way, ma'am. Please stay on the line with me until they arrive, just in case. I noticed belatedly that while I had been talking, Alex had opened the door to my condo. Las Vegas Metro. Before they could utter another word, I was at the door. Please come in. He's over there. I gestured generally toward the couch, though given the size of my condo, they saw Michael after taking 3 steps through the door. One officer made a beeline for the body. The other stopped at my side, though kept an eye on his partner. I watched the first officer check Michael's pulse, turn to look at his partner, and give a small shake of his head, confirming the death. Well, not officially until the medical examiner's arrival, I supposed, yet enough confirmation that they didn't have to worry about him being a threat. The first officer called some information in. Based on my vast array of knowledge, from crime shows, of course, I assumed he was making sure the medical examiner and the crime scene investigators were coming. I almost called out to have him contact Detective Jacob Dawson, lead investigator on the actress murders, then decided he'd figure that out for himself. Of course, it was well after midnight. Maybe the detective wouldn't be on call? I focused on the officer before me. About my age, with that former military look I could usually pick out of a crowd, and was very no-nonsense while he asked his questions. I explained what had happened, including that I had been on the phone with Alex when Michael showed up, which was how Alex knew I might be in danger. The officer stopped me. What made you suspect the deceased was the actress murderer? I glanced at Alex, which the officer did not miss. I shrugged, and Alex jumped in, walking close enough to the officer that I had a feeling I knew what was coming. Making intense eye contact, Alex breathed deeply while explaining. I knew Michael. I knew he had met at least 2 of the victims. I asked him about it one day. I thought his answers didn't make a lot of sense. My eyes grew big as I watched white mist leave the officer's mouth during exhalations. His eyes softened and he nodded. That makes sense. I'll pass that along to the detective. He may want to ask you additional questions. Alex took a step backward. Of course, officer. Whatever I can do to help. I smothered a laugh when the officer, still looking a little confused, turned and walked over to his partner. More commotion at my doorway drew our attention. I recognized Detective Dawson and surmised the others entering were medical and crime scene people. 2 of the EMTs approached me and Alex. We allowed them to look us over, but balked when they insisted we needed to go to the hospital. Ma'am, we'd like to make sure he didn't hurt you. I appreciate that, but do I look hurt? I smiled winningly and happily to show, see, I'm not just good, I'm great. It didn't work, though the young man did offer a small smile in return. I couldn't believe I was about to do it. I looked over at Alex and gestured for a little assistance. A little incubus assistance. Alex shook his head slightly at my audacious turn and complied. He stepped in close to the young EMT, who startled but did not give ground. Alex leaned in like maybe he was someone who didn't recognize personal space. He smiled his beautiful smile. Even the EMT responded slightly to it and spoke. We really appreciate everything you've done for us. You can clearly see we're both perfectly fine. We'll wait to speak with the detective when he's ready and be done with this whole thing. You understand, right? Dazed, the EMT nodded. I completely understand. I'll make a note that there were no physical injuries requiring treatment or further examination. I'm glad you're both okay. He and his colleague jotted down a few notes before heading over to speak with the detective, who was wrapping up a conversation with the original responding officers and the medical examiner. I felt guilty when Detective Dawson approached, and I saw the suspicious look on his face. Can either of you explain this without sounding like you're making the entire thing up? Chapter 25. Alex and I remained quiet. Detective Dawson sighed. From what I've gathered, Michael Onyx attacked you in your home. He started with a nod at me. You arrived to assist. He turned his attention to Alex. And somewhere in there, Mr. Onyx wound up dead from head trauma. That's correct, Detective. I finally spoke up. What happened was self-defense. There was no reason not to be upfront about it. He attacked me. Alex's arrival distracted him, and I kneed him in the balls. Once he sufficiently recovered, I shrugged. He admitted he was the actress murderer, and Alex punched him in the face when he tried to attack us again. He hit his head, falling, had a seizure, and died. My voice caught on that last word. Michael was a killer, but still. I had never seen someone die in person before. Alex murmured his agreement to my account. About that, Dawson responded. You say he confessed to killing the women, even though no concrete evidence has been supplied to suggest that today, or previously. He stared long enough for me to feel uncomfortable. But pretty decent circumstantial evidence, I countered. All the women had similar appearances, and Michael was present at all the scenes. The detective sighed again. That's true, he agreed, though continued to stare at us. As if sensing it was time again for his magic, Alex stepped closer to the detective, who put a hand out immediately. Please stay back, Mr. Moore. Alex looked nonplussed by the statement, but complied. I wondered how he would work his incubus influence without the necessary distance. Suddenly, Alex began having a coughing fit. He rudely did not cover his mouth as he directed the forced air at the detective. Dawson turned and reflexively exhaled. Ah, that's how. Detective Dawson made a face in apparent disgust. When Alex inhaled the white mist, though, Dawson's expression took on an open visage. I didn't think I'd ever get tired of seeing Alex work his magic. Now, when Alex leaned in closer, the detective did not hold up a hand or say anything. You already had Michael Onyx on your radar. Other witnesses reported they saw him speaking with several of the victims in the days leading up to their deaths. You believe he poisoned them with chemicals that simply aren't remaining in the system long enough to be identified by the lab. We are innocent bystanders. Do you understand? Yes. I think it's time for your team to go, okay? Okay. I watched in awe. The detective spoke to his team members. Everyone gathered up their belongings, and they left. They actually left. Won't they realize later that what they're thinking doesn't make any sense? I asked once they were gone. Not exactly. What does that mean? Do your suggestions eventually fade? They do, just not completely. It's hard to explain. They may recognize that something seems off or maybe doesn't add up, but they'll remain convinced they have their guy. What usually happens is they'll change the way they look at other information so that it fits the suggestions I gave them. Plus, our story is the truth. What usually happens? How often do you use your ability? I was teasing him now, and he knew it. Much more since I've met you, he admitted, walking over to me. You're in my personal space, I told him, holding a hand up like the detective had. Alex wrapped my hand in his. I hope to be in even more of it soon, he said, his voice a husky growl. I think that can happen, I responded, pulling my hand from his and wrapping both arms around him. Our bodies fully touching felt electric. Our lips met, lightly at first, then with deepening desire and intensity. A first kiss that met all the promises hinted at before. I pulled back, knowing passion mirrored in our eyes. Stay with me, my incubus, I whispered. Always. Epilogue. The phone rang, jarring me. I might have to reconsider having a landline in the office. I had only slept a few hours the night of the ball, or even Sunday night. I yawned. Cherie had taken a personal day, so I was answering my own phone. Hello? I pulled my gaze from the laptop and gave the caller my undivided attention. Good morning, Catherine. It took me a second to place the voice. Good morning, Robin, I replied perfunctorily. I softened my tone. I wished I understood my instant dislike for the talent agent. How are you this morning? I'm well. Happy this nastiness with Michael Onyx was wrapped up. Indeed. I heard that he was killed in your condo. I remained quiet. By Alexander Moore, one of your clients. I sighed. She called to gossip. Lovely. Well, none of that was a secret. It had probably been all over the early morning news. Not that I had watched, of course. I was trying to get some sleep, albeit restless, unfortunately. I refocused on the call. That is correct, I gave a neutral response. Interesting that Mr. Moore was in your condo in the middle of the night. I gaped at the phone. What are we, in middle school? Did you need something? I'm calling to say I'm glad you're okay, she said insincerely. The councilwoman will be on Entertainment Daily this morning talking about the story. Why? It popped out of my mouth before I could stop myself. Robin sharply inhaled. Why wouldn't she? She's very involved in the community. Now I rolled my eyes at the offense she took. Good grief. Was she the councilwoman's lackey? Of course she is. I'll be sure to watch. Was there anything else? At least she didn't miss the tone. No, I'll see you at the next chamber meeting. Have a good day. I hung the phone up in relief. She was so odd, and I still couldn't really explain why. I typed on the laptop keyboard, calling up the television show's website. They didn't stream the show live, but the videos were loaded almost immediately after. My cell phone pinged arrival of a text, and I smiled when I saw it. Good morning, sunshine. Good morning, Alex. Did you get any sleep? A little. BTW, Robin the talent agent called. She said to watch Entertainment Daily this morning. Councilwoman will be on. The one that you were asking about? Yep, I'll watch. It's on a time delay for me. I'm watching on the computer. I'll text you if anything interesting happens, in case you want to skip it. LOL. Dinner tonight? Pick you up at 7. I sent a few smiling emojis, minimized the show's page, and focused back on the documents I had been working on. About 15 minutes later, my cell phone pinged another incoming text. Definitely should watch the show. Anything I should know? Just watch. Curious about your take on it. Now my curiosity was piqued. I barely maintained attention on my documents until the show finished and its website reflected the video upload. Finally, I clicked start and maximized the screen. Elizabeth Addison's smiling face appeared. After welcoming viewers, her smile dropped. In a stunning conclusion to the actress murders, The serial murder at large has been stopped. Councilwoman Barbara Nolman, a grand supporter of the film production community in the Valley, is here with us this morning to discuss what happened. Welcome, Councilwoman Nolman. She turned, and the image switched to the camera on the councilwoman. Barbara lifted her head, her brown hair shiny under the lights, and smiled her creepy smile. I imagined she meant for it to be ingratiating. Thank you for having me, Elizabeth. The camera pulled back for a two-shot of the women, seated next to each other on two matching blue cloth chairs, as though meeting for tea in someone's living room. The councilwoman, in a severe charcoal pantsuit, paled in comparison to the newscaster attractiveness of Elizabeth in a hot pink fitted dress. And yet, there was something that compelled the eye. Perhaps this was why she kept being re-elected. Elizabeth provided a quick summary of the case for any of her viewers who'd spent the last months living under a rock, and then opened the floor for the councilwoman. Can you tell us what happened? Of course. Barbara stared directly into the camera, normally a no-no. However, she clearly wanted everyone's attention. It certainly worked on me. I stared at her obsidian eyes. 2 nights ago, following a masquerade ball hosted by a Las Vegas, Los Angeles-based production company. Interesting that she didn't mention Mia by name. At the home of talent agent Catherine Rodham, local actor Michael Onyx was killed in self-defense by another local actor, Alexander Moore. Buzzing filled my head. I considered her words. None of that was a lie and probably was mentioned in the newscast this morning. But I refocused on her continuing to talk. I already missed some. The police are confident that they have their man, so to speak, and that the city can sleep safe again tonight. Michael Onyx was an animal, a danger to civilized society, and we must be ever vigilant to stop such threats from infiltrating our city. When the camera switched back to Elizabeth, she smoothed out her expression, not so fast that viewers missed her looking askance at the councilwoman. That seems an unnecessarily strong sentiment, she said with a tight smile. The camera returned to Barbara, her smile showing those small, sharp teeth that unnerved me. She shook her head slowly. Oh, Elizabeth, it's not. We're at war. My jaw dropped open, along with Elizabeth's, though she recovered faster. Thank you, Councilwoman. It's been interesting. Thank you, Elizabeth. Always a pleasure. The video ended, and I stopped it before the webpage could autoplay the next in the series. I sat back in my chair. Holy cow. I grabbed my cell phone. What did she mean? We're at war? I have no idea. Could she know about? Possible. What will you do? It'll be discussed in the appropriate circles and dealt with as necessary. Okay then, that was quite a statement with no real information. LOL. Better this way, I have no doubt. See you tonight. Again, we exchanged smiling emojis, and then I got back to work, troubled by what I had seen, unsure of what it meant, and knowing I was entirely out of my depth anyway. Better for Alex and the supernatural world to address it. I heard you have a greater level of understanding of my needs. She crossed her legs, blue and white polka dot stockings peeking out below her mid-calf blue silk dress. Normally that could be a cheesy sexual come-on, but since this was the 4th vampire sitting across from me in my office in less than a week, I understood exactly what she meant. Plus, we had met previously, and I knew she wasn't propositioning me. I do indeed, Evie, I assured her. I loved how she still looked straight out of the 1920s, with her blonde bob and blue eyes, dark red lipstick contrasting with her creamy pale skin. I guessed that was her thing. I took her through my standard spiel and paperwork. I think that about wraps it up, I concluded. One final thing. Uh-oh. Thank you. That caught me off guard. For doing my job? For being here, for being understanding and sympathetic to us. Not everyone is, or would be. I appreciate that. If you haven't already, you can definitely expect more of our kind, as word continues to spread about you and the Peterson Talent Agency. I hope so. These are exciting times. In so many different ways, I was finding out. Evie stood, and I did the same. She walked to the door, turned to give me a high-wattage smile, and walked out the door. Welcome to the Paranormal Talent Agency. This has been Lights, Camera, Action, Episode 1 of the Paranormal Talent Agency. Written and produced by Heather Silvio. Book copyright 2018. Audiobook copyright 2024. Thank you for listening.